Tonight we are walking into a world where mountains still belong to gods, where storms were not merely weather but emotion, and where every flame carried memory of divine theft. You find yourself in ancient Greece, beneath a sky so clear that every star appears sharpened like silver pins pressed into dark velvet. The air is cool. Sea wind travels inland from distant harbours carrying salt, wet stone and the faint smell of olive wood smoke rising from village hearths. Somewhere beyond the hills, waves strike harbour walls in slow, patient rhythm, as if the earth itself is breathing in sleep. Before we begin, if you enjoy journeys like this, take a quiet moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if these stories truly bring you peace. And if you feel like it, share your location and local time in the comments. There is something strangely comforting about knowing where in the world you're listening tonight. Now settle in, because tonight you're approaching one of the oldest and most haunting mysteries in Greek mythology. Not the story of war, not the story of conquest, but the story of a gift. A beautiful gift. A gift so radiant that no mortal could refuse it. And yet inside that beauty waited suffering, grief, illness, labour, hunger and sorrow. Why would the gods create such a thing? And why, in the imagination of the ancient Greeks, did humanity's first great curse arrive not as a monster, not as a flood, not as fire from the sky, but as a woman fashioned by divine hands? That question has lingered for nearly 3,000 years. Even now, historians continue to debate how ancient audiences understood this myth. Some believe it was a warning about temptation. Others see something deeper, more unsettling. Another interpretation suggests the myth preserved an older fear, one rooted in humanity's uneasy relationship with both desire and knowledge. Because perhaps the true danger was never the jar. Perhaps it was curiosity. Or perhaps curiosity was only the instrument, never the cause. As you walk deeper into this world, marble sanctuaries begin to emerge from moonlit mist. White columns glow softly under starlight. Sacred fires burn before temple altars, their orange light trembling across carved stone. Cypress trees sway in the night breeze. Owls call from rocky slopes. Somewhere far above, hidden by cloud and mountain, lies Olympus, home of the immortals. To the Greeks, Olympus was not merely a mountain. It was order, power, hierarchy, divine authority, and above all stood Zeus, king of gods, lord of thunder, keeper of law, oath, and cosmic balance. His voice lived in storms, his anger moved through lightning. His silence could be more frightening than either. Yet even Zeus had enemies. Not always enemies who raised swords. Sometimes the most dangerous enemies were those who challenged divine authority through thought, through cleverness, through defiance. One such being was Prometheus. Even his name carried meaning. Forethinker. The one who thinks ahead. You can almost see him now standing at the edge of firelight, not fully god, not fully mortal, but something older. A titan. One of the ancient powers that existed before the Olympians secured rule over the cosmos. Unlike many of his kind, Prometheus possessed something unusual, even among immortals. Compassion. He watched mortals closely, closer than the gods often did. He saw their struggles in cold winters. He saw bare feet on sharp stone. He saw hunger in failed harvests. He saw infants crying in smoke-dark huts while wind slipped through woven walls. Mortals fascinated him, fragile, temporary, imperfect, and yet capable of astonishing persistence. The Greeks often imagined early humanity as weak in body but powerful in potential. Mortals lacked claws, thick fur wings, or venom. They were vulnerable to cold beasts, storms, and famine. Survival itself was uncertain. Sacred rituals arose partly from this vulnerability. Offerings to gods were not merely acts of worship. They were negotiations with forces larger than human life. Prometheus saw all of this, and something inside him stirred. Was it pity? Love? Ancient poets offer different shades of his character. Some portray him as noble, others as arrogant. Scholars remain divided. Perhaps he was both. That ambiguity matters, because myths endure precisely where certainty fades. Tonight you stand in that uncertainty. Prometheus loved humanity. That much seems clear. But love in myth rarely comes without consequence. As dawn begins to approach, pale silver light touches the mountain ridges. Village roosters cry from valleys below. Fishermen push narrow wooden boats toward the sea. In marketplaces, merchants prepare baskets of figs, grain wine and oil. Potters uncover drying clay vessels. Shepherds guide flocks through dew-covered grass. Ancient Greece awakens, and yet something invisible is already moving. Destiny. The Greeks believed fate was not easily escaped even by gods. There were powers older than Olympus itself. The Moirai, the fates, spun and measured life's thread. Even Zeus respected boundaries he did not fully control. This idea gave Greek myth its melancholy beauty. Power existed, but power had limits. Even kings of gods could not command everything. You continue walking toward a sacred grove where olive trees twist from earth like old hands. Their bark feels rough beneath your fingertips. The scent of crushed leaves mixes with cool soil and wild herbs. At the grove's centre burns a small fire tended by priests. The flames move strangely tonight. Too steady, too silent. One old priest notices. His weathered face tightens. He whispers a warning. When fire grows quiet, he says someone has already angered heaven. Then he says nothing more. Was it merely ritual language? An old superstition? Or did he sense what was coming? No one could know. That uncertainty is part of the myth's power. Because the curse of Pandora did not begin with Pandora. It began earlier, with pride, with deception, with insult, with fire, and with a decision made by beings who believed they understood consequence. Soon you will witness the first fracture between Zeus and Prometheus, a fracture that will widen into rebellion, a rebellion that will bring fire into mortal hands, and from that fire another creation will emerge, beautiful, graceful, radiant, a masterpiece of divine craftsmanship, and perhaps the most dangerous gift ever given. Somewhere beyond sight on Olympus thunder murmurs behind distant clouds. Not loud, not violent, just enough to remind you that someone is watching. Someone already knows how this story ends. But you do not yet. For now all you hear is wind through olive branches and the soft crackle of sacred flame. The world still feels calm, still whole, still innocent. But innocence, as the Greeks understood, rarely survives knowledge. And knowledge is already approaching. Morning spreads slowly across the Greek world, and you begin to see the age before Pandora more clearly. Sunlight pours over limestone hills and glitters across the Aegean Sea like shattered bronze. Fishing boats move across the water in quiet arcs. Temple bells ring faintly from coastal sanctuaries. Smoke rises from clay ovens where bread begins to bake, and the smell of warm grain drifts through village lanes. At first glance, this world seems peaceful, but peace in myth often hides tension beneath its still surface. This is an age the Greeks sometimes imagined as simpler, closer to divine order, though not free from danger. Mortals still fear winter hunger storms and disease, but suffering has not yet taken its fullest form. Labour is lighter. The weight of survival, though real, has not yet become crushing. There is effort, but not endless exhaustion. There is hardship, but not yet the relentless burden that later generations will know. Ancient poets described earlier ages of humanity almost like fading memories of a golden dawn. Not perfect paradise, but a world not yet broken by irreversible loss. As you walk through fields of barley and wildflowers, you notice something important about mortal life. Humans depend on ritual. Everywhere there are signs of devotion. Small shrines stand beside roads. Olive oil lamps burn before carved figures of gods. Shepherds leave bits of cheese and bread on stone altars. Sailors whisper prayers before entering uncertain waters. To the Greeks, the world is alive with presence. A mountain is never just a mountain. A spring may belong to a nymph. A grove may be sacred to a god. Even wind can carry intention. This constant awareness shapes human thought. Mortals live not above nature but within sacred negotiation. Give offerings, speak prayers, honor divine boundaries. In return, perhaps the gods remain favorable. Perhaps crops grow. Perhaps ships return safely. Perhaps children survive winter. Yet among the immortals, opinions differ about these fragile creatures. On Olympus, golden halls shimmer beneath a sky untouched by dust or decay. Marble floors reflect torchlight. Nectar glows in chalices. Music drifts from divine gatherings like liquid silver. The gods do not age. They do not hunger as mortals hunger. Their time flows differently. Days mean little. Centuries pass like changing weather. And Zeus watches. You can imagine him seated upon his throne, vast shoulders wrapped in cloud-coloured robes, lightning sleeping in his grasp. His face is not constantly wrathful, as later paintings often suggest. That is too simple. Zeus is more complex. He can be generous, protective, even amused. But beneath those qualities lies something immovable. Authority. Order must be maintained. Hierarchy must remain clear. Gods above. Mortals below. Zeus understands something few others fully appreciate. Power is rarely threatened by weakness. It is threatened by growth, by potential, by those who learn too much. And humanity is learning. That thought troubles him more than he admits. Meanwhile, Prometheus continues observing mortal life from hills, coastlines, and sacred valleys. He walks unseen among shepherd camps and harbour markets. He hears human speech rough and beautiful. He notices how quickly mortals adapt. A fisherman repairs broken nets with clever knots. A potter improves the curve of a vessel for better heat distribution. A child sharpens stone with patient experimentation. Small acts, ordinary acts, yet Prometheus sees what they mean. Humans learn, slowly, imperfectly, but relentlessly. That is their strange gift. Unlike gods, mortals must struggle to understand, but struggle creates invention. Need creates imagination. Suffering creates adaptation. Some researchers believe ancient myths like this reflected real cultural memory of technological leaps, agriculture, metallurgy, fire mastery, ritual sacrifice. Whether literal or symbolic, the Greeks understood something profound. Knowledge changes power. Prometheus begins to admire not merely humanity's survival, but its becoming. That word matters. Becoming. Mortals are unfinished, and that makes them dangerous. One evening you follow Prometheus to a cliff overlooking the sea. Sunset burns red across the horizon. Waves strike black rock far below. Gulls circle in sharp cries. The air smells of salt and warm stone. Prometheus stands motionless, but his thoughts move like storms. He sees possibility. He sees cities not yet built, ships not yet sailed, poems not yet sung, temples not yet raised. He sees humanity becoming something greater than frightened creatures huddling in darkness. But greater through what? Knowledge, skill, fire. The last thought returns again and again. Fire. The Greeks saw fire as more than heat. Fire transformed raw into cooked ore, into metal darkness, into visibility ritual, into sacred offering. Fire represented civilization itself. To possess fire was to possess transformation. Without it, humans remained bound to limitation. Prometheus understands this deeply, and so another feeling grows beside compassion: impatience. Why should humans remain weak? Why must they stay dependent? Why should Olympus alone guard transformative power? These questions are dangerous not because they are loud, but because they are reasonable. Rebellion often begins quietly, not with battle, with thought. Night falls again. Stars spread across the heavens. Orion rises. The Pleiades shimmer. Priests observe constellations from temple terraces, believing celestial movement reflects divine order. In one sanctuary, a seer enters trance beside sacred smoke. Her breathing slows. Her eyes flutter. Then she speaks. Her voice is thin but steady. Beware the gift that teaches hunger. The priests freeze. One drops a bronze bowl. The ringing echoes. What does it mean? No one agrees. Some think it warns of failed harvest. Others believe war approaches. Another interpretation survives in later oral traditions that the prophecy referred not to food but to desire itself, a gift that teaches hunger, a gift that creates longing where none existed before. The words spread quietly through temple circles, then fade into rumour. Prometheus never hears them, or perhaps he does and ignores them. Ancient storytellers rarely tell us. That silence feels deliberate, because prophecy in Greek myth often matters less as instruction and more as revelation. Warnings are given, they are heard, yet they fail to prevent destiny. You begin to sense something tragic forming. No villain yet, no curse yet, only choices. Choices shaped by pride, love, fear, and vision. Far away thunder rolls beyond Olympus. Soft, distant, but closer than before. Zeus has noticed Prometheus's growing sympathy. He says nothing. Not yet. But kings do not need to speak to remain dangerous. In the mortal world, fires burn low as families gather for evening meals. Bread breaks, oil lamps flicker, children sleep beside woven blankets, dogs curl near doorways. Everything feels ordinary. And perhaps that is what makes coming catastrophe so powerful. The world before disaster rarely feels dramatic. It feels normal, warm, quiet, almost safe. You look once more at the stars above Greece and feel the strange stillness before transformation. Somewhere between God and mortal Prometheus is making decisions that will reshape existence. Somewhere on Olympus, Zeus is watching with growing suspicion. And somewhere in fate's invisible design, a woman not yet made already casts a shadow. She has no breath, no voice, no name, yet. Night settles once more across the Greek world, and under that vast star-filled sky your attention turns fully toward the Titan whose choices will change everything. Prometheus is not easy to understand, and perhaps that is why his story has survived so powerfully. Even the ancient Greeks did not entirely agree on what kind of being he truly was. Some remembered him as humanity's first great protector, a rebel who suffered for compassion. Others saw something more complicated, a brilliant mind whose pride rivaled the gods themselves. Historians continue to debate which interpretation came first, but perhaps both are true. Compassion and pride often grow closer than people wish to admit. His name, Prometheus, means forethinker. It is a name heavy with symbolism. To think ahead is to imagine consequences before they arrive. It is to predict storms while skies remain clear. It is to understand that today's kindness may become tomorrow's catastrophe. The Greeks admired intelligence, but they also feared cleverness without restraint. Intelligence can build cities. It can also challenge cosmic order. Prometheus embodies that tension. You find him in a high valley where mountain mist drifts between stone ridges. Pines whisper in cold wind. The ground beneath your feet feels damp with dew. A small fire burns nearby, though strangely, its flame bends toward him, as if acknowledging his presence. Titans belong to an older age before Olympian rule fully stabilized the cosmos. Prometheus carries that ancient weight. He remembers wars most mortals will never know. He remembers chaos before order. He remembers when power was claimed through raw force. That memory shapes him. Unlike Zeus, who rules from secured authority, Prometheus understands instability. Order, he knows, is never permanent. Every throne rests on earlier conflict. Every king fears displacement. This understanding makes him perceptive. It also makes him dangerous. As dawn approaches, he descends towards human settlements. He does not announce himself. He watches. A mother kneels beside a child burning with fever, placing cool water on the boy's forehead. A farmer studies cracked soil after poor rain. An elderly shepherd rubs aching joints before guiding sheep into rocky pasture. Prometheus sees suffering not as abstraction but as detail. He notices trembling hands, hollow stomachs, exhaustion in tired eyes. Mortality fascinates him. To immortals, time stretches endlessly. To humans, time compresses into urgency. Every season matters. Every winter matters. Every harvest matters. Mortals cannot waste centuries learning. Their short lives sharpen desire. The Greeks understood this deeply. Human mortality was not merely tragedy, it created intensity. Because life ends, meaning matters. Prometheus begins to admire this fierce brevity. He watches a young craftsman shaping clay beside a kiln. The man's first vessel collapses, his second cracks, his third finally holds form. Failure teaches him, improvement follows pain. Prometheus smiles faintly. Here lies something the gods rarely experience. Growth through limitation. The immortals possess power by nature. Humans must earn mastery. That difference becomes central to Prometheus's devotion. Some researchers believe Prometheus reflects ancient cultural admiration for artisans, inventors, and craftsmen. He's not a warrior. He's not defined by brute force. His power comes from intelligent planning and creation. In that sense, he feels startlingly modern though deeply ancient. He believes knowledge can elevate the weak, but belief slowly hardens into conviction. Conviction hardens into defiance. This transformation happens quietly. One evening, as orange sunlight fades behind distant hills, Prometheus meets his brother Epimetheus. The contrast between them feels immediate. Where Prometheus is measured and watchful, Epimetheus is warm, spontaneous, and emotionally open. His name means after-thinker. He understands consequences only after choices are made. The symbolism is almost painfully clear. Forethought, afterthought, planning, reaction. The brothers speak near a riverbank where reeds sway in golden light. Frogs call from shallow water. Cicadas sing in the grass. Epimetheus senses tension. "You spend too much time among mortals," he says. Prometheus says nothing at first. Then quietly they could become more. Epimetheus exhales. More than what? More than prey, more than frightened worshippers. Epimetheus studies him. "You speak like someone preparing trouble." Prometheus almost smiles. Trouble, he says, depends on perspective. The river continues flowing. For a while neither speaks. Then Epimetheus lowers his voice. "Zeus watches you." The warning hangs in the air. This matters. Because every great myth includes a warning that could have changed everything if only someone had fully understood it. Here is one such warning. Zeus watches you. Prometheus hears it. He understands it. But understanding danger does not guarantee obedience. That is another Greek truth. Knowledge does not always save. Sometimes it only clarifies risk. Thunder murmurs from distant clouds. Prometheus lifts his gaze toward Olympus. His expression hardens. "What does Zeus fear?" he asks. Epimetheus answers immediately. "Disobedience." Prometheus shakes his head. "No." His voice becomes softer. He fears change. Silence follows. The statement feels almost forbidden, because it cuts too close to truth. Kings fear rebellion, yes. But deeper still, they fear losing control over what tomorrow becomes. Prometheus now believes humanity represents tomorrow. And if mortals remain weak, tomorrow remains small. That belief begins consuming him. Night deepens, stars emerge one by one, sacred fires burn in distant villages like scattered embers across dark earth. In a nearby shrine, a priest falls asleep beside an altar and dreams. In the dream he sees two flames, one golden, one blue-white. The golden flame burns steady upon Olympus. The blue-white flame descends toward human hands. As the two lights approach each other, the earth trembles. The priest wakes, gasping. Sweat covers his skin despite the cool air. He rushes to record the dream. Ancient Greeks took dreams seriously. Not every dream came from gods, but some were believed to carry divine messages. Priest rulers and generals often consulted dream interpreters before major decisions. A flame descending from heaven would have been recognized as profound symbolism, but symbolism rarely arrives with easy explanation. Was it blessing? Warning? Prophecy? No one knew, and that uncertainty spreads like mist through the story. Meanwhile, Prometheus stands alone on a ridge overlooking sleeping villages. Below him, tiny fires flicker. Above him, constellations wheel in perfect silence. Cold wind moves through his hair. The night smells of pine resin and distant smoke. He speaks aloud, though no mortal hears. They deserve more. Simple words, dangerous words. Not because they are cruel, because they challenge structure. In that moment, compassion and pride become nearly indistinguishable. Does Prometheus help humanity because they need him, or because he wants to prove Zeus wrong? Ancient traditions leave that unresolved, and perhaps deliberately so. Heroes become more compelling when motives remain layered, far above lightning flashes within clouds without striking ground, a sign, a warning, or merely storm. No one could know, but Prometheus understands one thing now with absolute clarity. He will act. Not today, perhaps not tomorrow, but soon. And when he does, the balance between gods and mortals will fracture. Fire will change hands. Zeus will answer insult with punishment. And from divine anger something beautiful will be created. Something destined to carry both wonder and ruin. A woman, not yet shaped, not yet breathing, but already moving through fate like a whisper. Pandora, though you do not know her name yet, the shadow of her arrival has grown darker. The sacred fire beside you crackles once, then suddenly flares high into the night, as if it already knows. The first open fracture between Prometheus and Zeus does not begin with thunder war or rebellion. It begins with a feast. That is one of the most fascinating details in the myth. The Greeks understood that civilization itself was held together by ritual meals, sacrifices, and sacred exchange. Food was never only food. Eating together established hierarchy, duty, gratitude, and divine order. So when conflict finally surfaces between Titan and king, it happens at the very heart of sacred custom. You now travel to Mythology, a place remembered in ancient tradition as the setting of one of mythology's most consequential deceptions. Historians continue to debate whether Mythology reflects a specific ritual centre or a symbolic sacred site preserved through oral tradition. The uncertainty only deepens its atmosphere. In the imagination of the Greeks, Mythology becomes the stage where humanity's future is quietly negotiated. Morning light spreads across a broad ceremonial plain. Stone altars stand in rows. Priests in white garments move carefully between sacred fires. The smell of roasted grain, incense, olive oil, and animal musk fills the air. Bronze vessels glimmer under sunlight. Nearby mortals gather in respectful silence, aware that today's ritual carries unusual importance. Even the wind feels strangely restrained, as though nature itself has paused to witness what will happen. At the centre of the gathering stands Prometheus. Across from him sits Zeus. The contrast is striking. Prometheus is stillness sharpened into thought. Zeus's authority made visible. Even without speaking, Zeus dominates space. His presence bends attention toward him. The Greeks often imagined divine kingship not merely as power, but as radiance. To stand before Zeus was to feel the overwhelming weight of cosmic order. His gaze alone could feel like judgment. Between them lies the sacrificial ox. In Greek religion, sacrifice formed a sacred contract between gods and humans. The animal would be divided into portions. Certain parts were burned for the gods, while other parts nourished the community. Ritual explained suffering, gratitude, and survival. Fire transformed flesh into smoke, carrying offerings upward. This mattered deeply. Whoever controlled sacrificial order shaped the relationship between mortals and immortals. Prometheus knows this, and he has a plan. He divides the ox into two portions. The first pile appears magnificent. Thick white fat glistens in sunlight, wrapped beautifully around what seems to be rich meat. It looks generous, luxurious, worthy of divine appetite. The second pile appears humble. Rough stomach lining covers it, less attractive, less impressive. But appearances deceive. Beneath the shining fat of the first pile lie bones. Beneath the rough covering of the second lies nourishing meat. A trick. Simple, elegant, dangerous. Prometheus turns to Zeus. Choose, he says. The word hangs in the air. Priests lower their eyes. Mortals barely breathe. Some ancient versions suggest Zeus immediately understood the deception. Others imply he chose without fully seeing the trick. Scholars remain divided, and that difference changes everything. If Zeus was fooled, Prometheus humiliated divine authority. If Zeus knowingly accepted the trap, then what follows becomes deliberate escalation. The older poetic tradition often suggests something subtle and unsettling. Zeus knew, and chose anyway, because sometimes power allows insult to occur in order to justify retaliation. Zeus studies both offerings. His expression remains unreadable. Sunlight flashes across polished bronze. Sacred flames crackle softly nearby. Then he reaches. He selects the beautiful pile. The pile of bones wrapped in fat. Silence. Absolute silence. Prometheus says nothing, but something inside him tightens. Zeus lifts the covering. Bones gleam white beneath melting fat. The deception stands exposed. A low murmur spreads among mortals. No one dares speak louder. Then Zeus looks up. His eyes meet Prometheus. This is the moment. Not loud, not explosive, far more frightening. Because Zeus does not roar. He smiles, just slightly, coldly. That smile chills the air more than thunder could. You begin to understand something ancient audiences would immediately recognize. Insulting power is dangerous. Humiliating power publicly is catastrophic. The smell of burning incense suddenly feels heavier. Heat from sacred fires presses against skin. Even birds seem to have stopped singing. Zeus finally speaks. So he says, calm as stone, this is how you honor the gods. Prometheus holds his ground. This is how mortals survive. There it is. The real conflict. Not bones, not fat, not meat. Survival. Prometheus has done more than trick Zeus. He has altered the symbolic economy of sacrifice. Because from this moment onward, mortals will keep nourishing meat for themselves and offer bones and fat to the gods. Greek audiences understood this myth as explanation for ritual practice. Why burn bones wrapped in fat during sacrifice? Because Prometheus established the pattern. Myth gave ritual meaning. Ritual gave myth permanence. But myths also reveal emotional truth. Here the emotional truth is rebellion through cleverness. Prometheus has chosen intelligence over submission. Zeus rises. The sky darkens almost instantly. Clouds gather over Mecone. Wind sweeps ash from altars. Torch flames bend violently, a divine sign. No mortal mistakes its meaning. An elderly priest collapses to his knees. A woman clutches her child. Bronze bowls rattle against stone. Zeus speaks again louder, now his voice carrying storm. You have taught mortals greed. Prometheus answers without lowering his gaze. No, I taught them dignity. Lightning flashes. Not striking, waiting. Ancient Greeks often framed divine anger through imbalance in nature. Storm without rain, fire without warmth, wind without direction. Here the atmosphere itself becomes judgment. Zeus steps closer. The space between god and titan narrows. Dignity, Zeus says softly, or ambition. Prometheus remains silent, because the question cuts deeper than accusation. Was this truly compassion, or ambition disguised as compassion? Again, the myth refuses easy answers. Perhaps Prometheus himself no longer knows. Thunder rolls, this time closer. Zeus raises his hand. The sacred fires extinguish. All of them, instantly. Smoke rises from blackened altars. Darkness spreads across the ceremonial ground despite daylight. Gasps ripple through the crowd. Then comes the punishment. Not death, not immediate destruction. Something colder, something strategic. Zeus declares that fire will no longer belong to humankind. No sacred flame, no cooking, no warmth, no forge, no transformation. Fire returns to divine control. The sentence lands with terrifying clarity. Mortals understand what this means. Cold nights, raw food, darkness, weakness, civilization slowed, progress halted. Prometheus feels it like a blade. This is worse than personal punishment. Zeus has targeted humanity itself. Exactly because Prometheus loves them. The king of gods understands leverage. Punish what the rebel values most. A harsh lesson, one the Greeks knew well. Power rarely strikes randomly. It strikes meaning. As the storm thickens, a young seer in the crowd begins trembling. Her eyes roll upward. Her voice changes. She speaks words later remembered in temple tradition. From stolen flame will come crafted beauty. From crafted beauty will come sorrow. Then she collapses. The prophecy spreads through the stunned gathering. No one understands it. Not yet. Stolen flame, crafted beauty, sorrow. Even Prometheus cannot decode it fully, but something inside him stirs. He now sees the road ahead. Zeus has made his move. Fire is gone. Humanity will suffer, unless someone breaks divine law. The storm breaks. Rain falls hard across Mecone. Cold, sharp, relentless. Prometheus stands motionless as water soaks his robes. Zeus disappears into cloud and lightning. The ritual ground empties in fear. Only Prometheus remains. Rainwater runs through ash and bone. The smell of wet smoke fills the air. He kneels beside one extinguished altar and touches the dead embers. Still warm, barely, a fading memory of fire. His fingers close around ash. His voice becomes almost a whisper. Then I will return it. There is no audience. No applause. No witness. Only rain. But history has shifted. The first insult is complete. The first punishment delivered. And now rebellion is no longer theoretical. It has become inevitable. High above the storm clouds, Olympus waits. Zeus believes he has restored order. Prometheus believes injustice cannot stand. Between those two convictions lies the fate of humanity, and somewhere beyond both fate quietly prepares another creation. A gift. A punishment. A woman made by gods. Pandora moves closer though still unborn. For now only one thing matters. Prometheus has chosen. He will steal fire. After Mecone, the world changes with frightening speed. What had seemed like ritual symbolism becomes daily suffering. You begin to feel what the loss of fire truly means, not as mythic abstraction, but as lived reality. Nights become longer, colder, darker. The comforting glow that once flickered inside clay homes vanishes. Villages that had relied on hearths now fall into shadow as soon as the sun disappears beyond the hills. The Greeks understood hearth fire as sacred. It warmed homes, cooked food, hardened tools, purified offerings, and centered family life. To lose fire was to lose far more than heat. It was to lose civilization's beating heart. You walk through a mountain village after sunset. Frost forms across stone paths. The air stings your lungs with every breath. A child shivers beneath woven wool. An old woman tries chewing raw grain softened only by water. Fishermen eat uncooked catch in silence. Blacksmith forges sit dead and cold, their iron tools unfinished. Pottery kilns no longer burn. Wet wood piles uselessly beside darkened homes. Dogs whine near doorways, confused by the unnatural absence of warmth. Prometheus sees all of it, and the suffering sharpens him. What began as sympathy now hardens into resolve. He no longer debates whether Zeus's punishment is excessive. He knows it is, and knowledge becomes decision. Ancient storytellers often treat turning points with surprising quiet. No trumpet sounds, no grand declaration fills the sky. Instead, rebellion begins in silence, in sleepless nights, in repeated images of suffering that become impossible to ignore. Prometheus now reaches that threshold. He climbs alone into high country where snow still lingers between shadowed ridges. Wind slices across exposed stone. Clouds drag low across mountain tops. Beneath him lies the mortal world, dark and cold. Above him rises Olympus, brilliant even through storm, its distant glow untouched by mortal hardship. That contrast burns inside him. Below hunger, above abundance, below darkness, above eternal flame. The injustice becomes unbearable. But stealing from Olympus is no simple act. This is not merely theft of an object. Fire belongs to divine order. To seize it is to challenge hierarchy itself. Prometheus understands the danger perfectly. Zeus will not forgive such defiance. Punishment will come, severe punishment. And yet another thought whispers beneath fear. If not him, who? This is the burden of conscience. Once you see suffering clearly, neutrality becomes difficult. The Greeks understood tragic responsibility well. Heroes often act knowing disaster will follow because inaction becomes morally impossible. Night deepens. Prometheus visits an ancient shrine built into a rocky cliff. The sacred site belongs to older powers, remnants of pre-Olympian worship. Moss covers weathered carvings. Rainwater drips from stone fissures. Oil lamps long extinguished leave soot-black stains. Here in silence Prometheus reflects. Some later traditions suggest he sought guidance from primordial powers, or from divine intelligence older than Zeus's reign. Surviving evidence is uncertain. Another interpretation suggests this shrine symbolizes internal struggle rather than literal consultation. Either way, what matters is the atmosphere of decision. He kneels. Cold stone presses against his hand. The scent of wet earth rises around him. Then sleep takes him, and with sleep comes a dream. In the dream he walks through total darkness. No stars, no moon, no horizon, only blackness. Far ahead burns a single flame, small, blue-white, not wild like ordinary fire. Still, focused, alive. As he approaches, a voice speaks from nowhere. Every gift creates hunger. The words freeze him. It is the same warning once spoken through prophecy. The gift that teaches hunger. Again, the flame flickers. The voice returns. What you give cannot be ungiven. Prometheus wakes instantly. Breathing hard, the shrine is silent. Dawn has not yet come. The dream lingers. Was it warning? Blessing? Threat? Ancient Greeks rarely expected prophecy to offer comfort. Divine signs illuminated consequences, not escape. Prometheus now understands something essential. Returning fire will not simply restore balance. It will transform humanity forever. Fire will empower, but power changes desire. Desire expands. Need becomes ambition. Ambition becomes civilization. Civilization creates greatness and suffering. No gift remains pure. Still he chooses. The decision is complete. Before dawn, Prometheus begins ascending toward Olympus. Cloud banks swirl around golden heights. Lightning pulses within vapor. The path itself feels unnatural, as if space resists intrusion. Few beings would dare approach the seat of Zeus with theft in mind. Yet Prometheus is ancient, cunning, and patient. Force is not his weapon. Intelligence is. That has always been his greatest danger. As he nears divine territory, warmth returns to the air. The change feels immediate and almost painful after mortal cold. Golden light glows across polished halls. Sacred braziers burn with immortal flame. Their fire does not sputter or consume fuel like mortal fire. It burns with stable perfection, embodying divine permanence. Servants move through corridors carrying nectar and ambrosia. Music drifts faintly from distant chambers. Olympus appears serene. Too serene. Prometheus moves like shadow. Some versions of the myth say he stole fire directly from the forge of Hephaestus. Others claim he took it from the chariot of the sun associated with Helios. Historians continue debating which tradition came first. Both carry symbolic weight. Fire from forge means craft and technology. Fire from sun means cosmic energy itself. Tonight the traditions blur. Prometheus enters a chamber where sacred flame burns within a bronze brazier beside giant fennel stalks drying against a wall. The fennel plant matters. Hollow inside it can carry hidden embers without immediately burning. Such details delighted ancient storytellers. Cleverness often lives in small practical knowledge. Prometheus reaches forward. The flame reflects in his eyes. Warmth touches his skin. For one suspended heartbeat, everything becomes silent. No wind, no music, no sound. Then he steals it. A living ember slips into the hollow stalk. Small, almost invisible. Yet the universe has changed. At that exact moment, lightning detonates across Olympus. Not outside. Inside. Every brazier flares. Every torch surges. Thunder shakes marble halls. Zeus knows. Immediately. Prometheus runs. Clouds tear apart around him as he descends from Olympus. Wind roars in his ears. Rain lashes stone. Lightning cracks across sky like divine fury given form. The fennel stalk burns hot in his grasp, but he protects it with desperate care. This is not merely fire now. It is rebellion. It is hope. It is consequence. Below, the mortal world waits in darkness. Prometheus reaches the first village at dawn. Exhausted, breathing hard, he kneels beside a cold hearth. Villagers stare in stunned silence. Children cling to mothers. An old man whispers impossible. Prometheus opens the stalk. The ember glows. Tiny, fragile, miraculous. He lowers it onto dry tinder. Smoke curls upward. Then flame. Real flame. Orange. Alive. Warm. Gusts erupt. Hands stretch toward heat. Tears fill tired eyes. A child laughs for the first time in many cold nights. The fire grows. Light fills the room. Warmth returns to human skin. In that instant, civilization restarts. Cooking, forging, craft, ritual, survival. Humanity has changed forever. But joy lasts only a moment before the sky answers. Thunder explodes overhead. Every villager flinches. The fire remains burning. Yet above the mountains, storm clouds twist into colossal spirals. Zeus's rage moves through the heavens. Lightning flashes again and again, illuminating valleys like fractured daylight. Prometheus stands and looks upward. He does not smile. He knows what comes next. He has won the gift, but triggered the price. Far above, Zeus rises from his throne with terrible calm. His anger has moved beyond outrage into something colder, something more deliberate. This is no longer about fire alone. Punishment must evolve. Not swift destruction. Something deeper. Something unforgettable. A lesson not merely for Prometheus. For humanity. Zeus speaks to the gathered gods. His voice is quiet. That makes it more frightening. If they want gifts, he says then, let them receive one. The hall falls silent. Even immortals sense danger. Then Zeus gives an order that will reshape myth forever. Bring Hephaestus. Prepare clay, a new creation will be made. Not beast, not storm, not weapon, something far more subtle, something beautiful. And somewhere within divine halls, destiny takes its first breath. Pandora is about to be conceived. The storm above Greece does not fade when dawn fully arrives. Instead, it lingers circling Olympus like restrained fury. Below, humanity celebrates the return of fire. Hearths blaze once more. Bread bakes. Iron softens in renewed furnaces. Sacred offerings rise in fragrant smoke. Villagers hold trembling hands over warmth, whispering prayers of gratitude, awe, and disbelief. Children laugh beside glowing embers. Old men stare into flame as if witnessing rebirth itself. To mortals, Prometheus has become saviour. But on Olympus the mood is very different. You ascend again into divine halls where golden columns shine beneath a sky darkened by thunderclouds. Marble floors reflect lightning in jagged white flashes. The scent of incense hangs heavy in still air. No music plays, no cups are raised. The gods sit in silence, each feeling the immense pressure radiating from Zeus. His anger has changed. It is no longer explosive. It has become controlled. And controlled anger is often more dangerous than rage. The Greeks understood this well. Sudden fury can burn fast and pass. Deliberate vengeance can reshape generations. Zeus now moves into that colder realm. Prometheus has insulted him twice. First at Mycone through deception, then through direct theft from Olympus itself. The offence is no longer symbolic. Divine authority has been challenged before both gods and mortals, and Zeus knows something crucial. Punishing Prometheus alone will not be enough. The Titan expected suffering. He accepted risk. Pain alone will not undo the rebellion. No, the punishment must strike deeper. It must target the relationship between mortals and their own desires. Zeus rises from his throne. Thunder rolls behind him like distant drums. His voice carries across the hall low and measured. They wanted fire, silence. They wanted advancement. Still silence. They wanted gifts. Lightning flashes. Then gifts they shall have. The words send unease through the assembled gods. Even immortals exchange uncertain glances. A gift that seems almost merciful. Yet everyone present understands something unsettling about Zeus's tone. Mercy is not what he's offering. He is designing irony. And irony in Greek myth often wounds more deeply than force. You notice Athena seated in thought, her sharp eyes unreadable. Wisdom itself watches without interruption. Nearby stands Hermes' quick-minded messenger sensing strategy unfolding. Aphrodite rests in luminous stillness, beauty incarnate. Each god possesses power beyond mortal comprehension. Zeus intends to use all of them. Then he speaks the command that shifts destiny. Summon Hephaestus. At once the hall changes. A distant metallic rhythm begins. Hammer against bronze, hammer against iron. You follow the sound downward far beneath the gleaming halls of Olympus into the forge of Hephaestus. Heat strikes immediately. The air grows thick with metal smoke, charcoal and molten ore. Sparks rise like swarms of fireflies. Bellows roar. Bronze glows white hot. The forge feels alive, breathing through flame and iron. Hephaestus turns. Unlike many gods, he carries visible imperfection. Ancient myths describe him as lame, shaped by hardship, marked by labour. Yet this only deepens his symbolic power. He is divine craftsmanship embodied. Beauty in Greek thought was not always softness. Sometimes beauty emerged through skilled creation, through mastery over material resistance. Zeus enters. The forge quiets. Even fire seems to listen. Hephaestus lowers his hammer. What would you have me make? Zeus approaches a broad stone table dusted with ash and clay. His answer is simple. A woman. The forge falls silent. Not merely quiet, silent. Even Hephaestus pauses. Some researchers believe this moment reflects profound cultural symbolism. In Hesiod's surviving tradition, Pandora becomes not simply an individual, but a crafted intervention in human destiny. She's not born from lineage. She's manufactured with intention. Every detail matters. Hephaestus speaks carefully. For what purpose? Zeus's eyes remain fixed. To be admired. A pause. To be desired. Another pause. To be accepted. Then the final words. And to be remembered. The meaning settles slowly. Zeus is not creating a monster. That would be obvious. Mortals would fear obvious danger. No, he will create beauty so compelling that resistance becomes difficult. Ancient Greek audiences understood a harsh truth: the most transformative forces in human life often arrive wrapped in longing, admiration and desire. The punishment will not force itself upon humanity. Humanity will welcome it. That is the genius. And the cruelty. Hephaestus kneels beside clay. Not ordinary earth. Sacred earth, mixed with water touched by divine influence. His powerful hands begin shaping form. You watch fingers press smooth and sculpt. Hips, arms, hands, shoulders, neck, face. The work proceeds with impossible precision. Clay becomes anatomy. Stillness becomes possibility. This scene feels almost sacred and deeply unsettling, because creation itself is being weaponized. The Greeks often treated craftsmanship as divine imitation of life. Potters shaping clay mirrored cosmic creation. To mold earth into human form suggested extraordinary power. Some later thinkers even saw echoes between Pandora's making and broader creation myths across ancient cultures. Yet here something unusual emerges. As Hephaestus shapes her face, he hesitates. Only briefly, but enough to matter. A shadow crosses his expression. Doubt. He senses what this creation will become. Not evil. Something sadder. Instrument. A crafted destiny. He continues. Outside the forge, thunder softens. Zeus's rage is becoming design. The violence of storm gives way to chilling calm. Then an omen appears. One of the forge fires suddenly burns blue-white, the same strange hue seen in prophecy and dream. Hephaestus notices. So does Zeus. Neither comments, but the sign matters. Again fire carries warning. Again divine creation approaches consequence. The unfinished figure now lies upon the stone table, breathtaking even without life. Her features hold impossible balance, grace and symmetry beyond mortal standards. But beauty alone is not enough. Zeus turns to the assembled gods. Each of you, he says, will give a gift. That word returns. Gift. Always gift, always layered. Athena steps forward first. She studies the lifeless figure with quiet intensity. Wisdom craft and disciplined intelligence radiate from her. She places a hand upon the clay brow. I give skill. Immediately invisible threads of knowledge enter the form. Weaving, handcraft, domestic mastery, practical intelligence. The Greeks valued such skills deeply. Household order was sacred order in miniature. Next, Aphrodite approaches. Warm fragrance fills the forge. Roses, myrrh, wild blossoms, sea foam. Her beauty bends attention effortlessly. I give desire. The air changes. Suddenly the figure seems not merely beautiful but captivating. Attraction becomes almost gravitational. Desire awakens not just in body but in imagination. To desire is to project longing onto another. Then Hermes steps forward. A faint smile touches his lips. He understands paradox. He thrives in ambiguity. I give persuasion, a dangerous gift. Words that charm, words that soften defences, words that conceal. Ancient Greeks respected rhetoric while fearing manipulation. Speech shapes reality. One by one the gods contribute. The Graces offer elegance. The Hours offer adornment. The Charites offer social charm. Each blessing appears luminous. Yet beneath every gift lies hidden edge. Skill creates ambition. Beauty creates longing. Charm creates vulnerability. Speech creates deception. Every gift creates hunger. The prophecy returns again. You feel its meaning growing. Zeus stands over the finished creation. She remains motionless. Still clay, still silent, but no longer empty. He looks upon her with terrible satisfaction. Not because she is monstrous. Because she is perfect, perfectly irresistible, perfectly human, perfectly dangerous. Historians continue to debate how ancient listeners felt at this stage of the myth. Did they feel dread, fascination, sympathy? Perhaps all three, because even before she breathes a question emerges. Is she guilty? How can she be guilty if designed for purpose? The myth refuses simple blame, and that complexity is part of its endurance. The blue-white flame in the forge flickers again. For a moment it bends toward the clay figure, as if recognizing her, or warning her. No one can know. Zeus raises his hand. The final step approaches. Life, breath, consciousness, identity. The forged body awaits awakening. Soon she will open her eyes for the first time. Soon she will speak. Soon she will wonder. And soon the world will receive the most beautiful punishment ever created. She does not yet know sorrow. She does not yet know destiny. She does not yet know her name. But the gods already do. Pandora, the all-gifted, and as sacred fire crackles around her unmoving form, you feel the strange melancholy at the heart of this myth. She is being made for destruction, yet she herself has done nothing. She is not chosen, not yet. The forge remains glowing long after the other gods step back. Heat rolls through the chamber in slow waves, pressing against skin, filling lungs with the taste of iron and ash. Sparks drift upward into smoky darkness like tiny stars escaping gravity. Upon the great stone table lies the figure that will soon change the fate of mortals. She is still motionless, still silent, still somewhere between object and life. Yet even now her presence alters the room. Every eye returns to her. Every thought bends toward what she will become. Hephaestus stands closest. His powerful hands, scarred by endless craft, rest beside the form he has shaped. Of all the gods present, he alone understands what it means to build something from resistance. Clay resists fingers. Metal resists hammer. Stone resists chisel. Creation always involves struggle. This truth matters. The Greeks admired effortless beauty, but they respected crafted beauty even more because craft revealed discipline, patience, and mastery over stubborn material. And yet tonight Hephaestus feels no pride, only unease. That feeling grows stronger as he studies the figure's face. Her features are impossibly balanced, but not lifelessly symmetrical. There is softness around the mouth, intelligence hinted in the brow, quiet openness in the still closed eyes. She does not resemble a statue made for worship. She already feels disturbingly real. Perhaps too real. Some later interpretations suggest Hephaestus understood before anyone else that this creation would not remain a mere instrument. Give something consciousness and intention becomes complicated. A crafted weapon obeys, a living being feels wonders, fears chooses. That uncertainty unsettles him. He turns towards Zeus. She will think Hephaestus says quietly. Zeus answers without hesitation. Yes. She will feel. Yes. Hephaestus pauses. She will suffer. For the first time, silence stretches. The sacred fires crackle. Molten bronze hisses in distant channels. Then Zeus speaks. So do mortals. The answer is cold in its simplicity, not cruel through volume, cruel through logic. Suffering in Zeus's view is not injustice, it is condition. Mortals suffer because they are mortal. That distinction reveals something central about this myth. The gods do not experience suffering the way humans do. They can feel pain, humiliation, desire, anger, but decay, aging, and irreversible loss belong primarily to mortal existence. Pandora will be sent into that realm, a being shaped by immortals, condemned to mortality. This paradox deepens her tragedy. You move closer to the stone table. The air near her feels strangely cooler despite surrounding fire. Her clay skin has lost its raw texture. It now appears almost luminous, as though warmed from within by hidden light. Fine details emerge everywhere. Fingernails shaped with delicate precision. Eyelashes resting like dark brush strokes. Lips slightly parted as if preparing for breath. Still no movement. Still no life. Yet destiny hums around her. Outside the forge, thunder has faded. Olympus grows strangely calm. This calm feels unnatural, like the stillness before snowfall or before a predator moves. Ancient audiences would recognize such silence as ominous. When divine emotion becomes too quiet, something profound often follows. One of the lesser divine attendants suddenly drops a bronze bowl. It strikes stone with a sharp metallic ring. Everyone turns. The attendant trembles. "I heard something," she whispers. "What?" asks Hermes. The attendant swallows. A voice. Whose voice? She shakes her head. "I do not know." "What did it say?" Her face pales. "It said, 'The vessel will choose.'" Silence returns. The phrase settles heavily over the forge. "The vessel will choose." Scholars remain divided on similar fragments preserved in later temple storytelling. Were such sayings later additions meant to soften Pandora's blame? Another interpretation suggests ancient oral traditions already struggled with a difficult question. If Pandora was created as punishment, where does responsibility truly lie? The prophecy introduces doubt. Choice. If she chooses, she possesses agency. If she possesses agency, the story becomes morally more complex. Zeus dismisses the omen with silence, but Hephaestus does not. He stores the words carefully. The vessel will choose. He looks again at the unmoving figure. Something in him changes. Until now he shaped a command. Now he sees a person, and with that recognition come compassion. This matters because myths often pivot on unexpected empathy. Even gods assigned roles can resist emotionally. Hephaestus reaches toward her face, then hesitates. Finally, his rough fingers gently brush a strand of dark hair from her brow. His voice lowers. "I'm sorry." No one responds. Perhaps no one fully hears. But the moment matters. An apology before life begins. An apology for existence itself. Ancient Greek tragedy often carries this same ache. Characters are born into structures older than themselves. They inherit curses, prophecies, and consequences they never chose. Pandora now stands at the threshold of such tragedy. Zeus raises his hand. The final act begins. Each god forms a circle around the stone table. Firelight dances across divine faces. Gold, bronze, ivory flame. Sacred words older than mortal language fill the forge. The sound feels less like speech and more like vibration, as if the structure of reality itself is being adjusted. The air grows dense, heavy, charged. Then breath enters her. It happens so subtly you almost miss it. Her chest rises, falls, rises again. A tiny inhale. The first breath of the first woman. Then movement. A finger twitches. Shoulders tense. Lips part further. Her eyelids flutter. Slowly, she opens her eyes. The forge changes. No thunder. No explosion. No grand spectacle. Only stillness. Her eyes move with pure bewilderment. Light. Colour. Shape. Sound. Heat. She experiences everything at once. The world crashes into consciousness. She inhales sharply. Fear flickers across her face. Then wonder. Raw, overwhelming wonder. The Greeks often treated first sight as spiritually significant. To see is to begin interpretation. Consciousness immediately becomes relationship with the world. Pandora's first experience is not speech, not command, but sensation. She sees fire. Its movement captivates her. She turns toward Hephaestus. She studies his face. Then Zeus. Then the gathered gods. Every gaze upon her carries meaning she cannot yet understand. She speaks. Her voice is soft, uncertain. What am I? The question pierces the room. Simple, profound. What am I? Not who. What? She already senses difference. She knows she's been made. Zeus steps forward. His expression softens, though calculation remains beneath it. You're a gift, he says. The word returns again. Gift. Pandora absorbs it. Gift. A beautiful word. A dangerous word. Ancient audiences would already feel the irony tightening. She lowers her gaze to her hands, flexing fingers in amazement. Touch itself astonishes her. Skin meeting skin, warmth, texture, movement answering intention. She stands slowly unsteady at first. Hephaestus instinctively steadies her arm. She looks at him. Something passes between creator and creation. Trust. Brief. Quiet. Important. She takes her first steps across stone. Each step echoes. Each step feels symbolic, because with every movement destiny becomes harder to stop. Hermes watches closely. Athena observes in thoughtful silence. Aphrodite studies Pandora almost like reflection. Each god recognizes traces of their own gift within her. Skill, charm, beauty, speech, longing, potential, and something else. Curiosity. It was not formally given, at least no tradition says so directly. Yet as Pandora explores the forge with widening eyes, curiosity radiates from her more strongly than any other trait. She touches bronze tools, watches sparks, follows smoke spirals upward. Every object becomes mystery. What? How? What is this? What does it do? Question after question fills her expression before words form, and suddenly the earlier prophecy grows more unsettling. The gift that teaches hunger. Curiosity itself is hunger. Hunger for knowledge. Hunger for hidden things. Hunger for answers. Zeus notices, and quietly approves, because now the design is nearly complete. Not cruelty, not malice, not destruction. Curiosity, a far more elegant instrument. Pandora returns to the stone table where she first awoke. Her eyes rest on the fading blue-white flame still burning alone in one corner of the forge. She tilts her head. Why is that fire different? No one answers, not even Zeus. Because some questions are dangerous the moment they are asked, and some questions once born never truly die. The first woman now stands alive beneath sacred fire. She breathes. She feels. She wonders. And though she does not yet understand it, the first true seed of humanity's curse may not be hidden in a jar. It may already live within her gaze. Pandora's first hours of life pass in a strange mixture of innocence and silent observation. She moves through the divine forge like someone walking inside a dream, every sensation new, every detail worthy of wonder. The warm stone beneath her bare feet feels different from the smooth bronze tools she touches. Rising heat brushes softly against her skin. Smoke curls upward in grey ribbons, carrying the scent of charcoal molten metal and faint cedar resin. Each breath teaches her something. Each glance opens another unknown. You begin to understand why the Greeks found this moment so haunting. Pandora is not born into childhood. She arrives fully formed, fully aware, yet completely inexperienced. She has intelligence without memory, language without history, emotion without context. She can speak but does not yet understand herself. That paradox gives her a peculiar vulnerability. She's powerful in beauty, but helpless in understanding. The gods gather around her one by one. Their gifts are not simple blessings. Each gift shapes destiny. Each gift appears beautiful. Each gift carries hidden consequence. This duality sits at the heart of the myth. Ancient Greek audiences recognized that blessings often contain burdens. Beauty invites desire. Intelligence invites conflict. Skill invites ambition. Nothing valuable comes without shadow. Athena approaches first. Her presence cools the room in a way no ordinary cold could. She smells faintly of olive leaves, polished bronze and temple incense. Wisdom radiates from her not as softness but as precise clarity. She stands before Pandora and lifts a woven cloth threaded with gold. "This is for your hands," Athena says. She places the cloth in Pandora's palms. Immediately understanding blooms. Not memory exactly, but capability. Pandora's fingers begin moving instinctively across the threads. Weave, pull, fold, align. Her hands learn structure, pattern, order. She understands textiles, household craft, embroidery, the quiet architecture of domestic civilization. The Greeks valued such knowledge deeply. A well-ordered household mirrored cosmic balance. In giving this gift, Athena grants Pandora the ability to create beauty from discipline. Pandora looks down in wonder. "How do I know this?" Athena answers gently, "Because skill can live before experience." A mysterious answer, not fully satisfying. Pandora already senses something important. The gods answer without always explaining. That realization plants its own discomfort. Next comes Aphrodite. The atmosphere shifts immediately. Warmth softens. Fragrance spreads like invisible silk. Rose petals, sea breeze, jasmine, wild honey. Beauty itself seems to bend toward her. Even flame moves differently in Aphrodite's presence, slower and more graceful. She touches Pandora's cheek. No visible light flashes. No thunder sounds. Yet the transformation is unmistakable. Pandora becomes impossible to ignore. Her beauty does not merely exist, it exerts force. Attention gravitates toward her. Desire awakens around her. Ancient Greeks understood beauty as power, not decoration. Beauty could inspire devotion, envy, obsession, jealousy, worship, or ruin. It shaped politics, marriage, alliance, and conflict. Aphrodite's gift is therefore not passive, it is influence. Pandora feels the change instantly. She notices the gazes around her shift. Different, heavier, more charged. She frowns slightly. Why are they looking at me differently? Aphrodite smiles. Because longing has many eyes. Again, the answer explains little. Pandora stores the confusion inside herself. Questions accumulate. That matters. Curiosity deepens not only through hidden objects but through incomplete answers. Then Hermes steps forward. Unlike Athena's clarity or Aphrodite's softness, Hermes carries motion. Quick intelligence, flexible thought. The scent of road dust parchment and distant markets seems to follow him. He smiles with the unsettling ease of someone who enjoys paradox. "I give you speech," he says. Pandora blinks. "I already speak." Hermes chuckles. "Yes, but now you will persuade." He touches two fingers to her lips. The effect is subtle. Yet immediately language changes inside her. Words gain rhythm, tone gains influence, expression gains strategy. She can soothe, charm, deflect, convince, suggest without commanding, reveal without revealing everything. Speech becomes art, and art becomes power. The Greeks deeply respected rhetoric. Public life depended on persuasive speech. Courts, politics, diplomacy, and philosophy all turned on language. But rhetoric carried danger. Words could illuminate truth or conceal it. Pandora now carries both possibilities. Hermes studies her carefully. Then almost too softly to hear he adds something not meant for everyone. And I give you questions. Pandora's eyes widen. Questions. The word resonates. Something inside her sharpens. Not knowledge. Need. Need to know. Need to understand. Need to uncover what remains hidden. The prophecy echoes again. Every gift creates hunger. Now the hunger feels undeniable. The Graces approach next, placing jewelled adornments upon her hair and wrists. Gold catches firelight. Gemstones shimmer with red and blue sparks. Elegance surrounds her. The hours clothe her in radiant garments soft as wind yet luminous as dawn. Fabric flows around her like living light. She appears no longer merely crafted. She appears royal, sacred, almost unreal. Yet as each gift accumulates, you sense something subtle and melancholy. Pandora becomes more complete outwardly, but inwardly uncertainty grows. Who is she beneath these gifts? Where does divine design end and self begin? Ancient myth often leaves such questions unresolved because they mirror human experience. Are people shaped by nature, upbringing, fate, desire, divine will, or choice? The Greeks wrestled constantly with these tensions. Pandora now embodies them all. At last Zeus steps forward. Silence falls. Even the forge quiets. The final gift belongs to him, and unlike the others, his offering is invisible. No object, no adornment, no spoken blessing. He simply places his hand upon her head. Pandora feels it immediately. Not warmth, weight. Not pain, presence. Something enters her mind like shadow beneath clear water. A hidden structure, an unseen axis. Potential awaiting activation. She gasps softly. What did you give me? Zeus withdraws his hand. His face reveals nothing. A future. The answer chills the room. A future. Gift. Warning. Sentence. Pandora cannot tell. Neither can you. Perhaps that is intentional. Because Zeus's greatest power here is not direct cruelty. It is orchestration. He has shaped conditions, not outcomes. Or perhaps both. Scholars remain divided over whether Zeus intended every detail that would follow or whether he merely created the catalyst and allowed nature to complete the tragedy. Another interpretation suggests something even more unsettling, that once consciousness exists, even gods cannot fully predict its path. That possibility matters, because it means Pandora may become more than punishment. She may become unpredictability itself. As the ceremony ends, an unexpected event interrupts the stillness. The blue-white flame in the corner suddenly surges high, tall, bright, silent. No crackling, no smoke, only pure luminous fire. Pandora turns toward it immediately. Again her attention locks. Again curiosity overwhelms everything else. She steps closer. Hephaestus instinctively reaches out. Stop! Pandora freezes. She looks back. Why? Hephaestus hesitates. The answer feels simple, yet impossible. Because I said so never satisfies true curiosity. Finally he says not every flame should be touched. Pandora studies him. Why? The question comes again. Deeper now. Not childish. Foundational. Why? Why boundaries? Why rules? Why secrets? Why silence? Hermes watches with narrowed eyes. Athena remains thoughtful. Zeus says nothing. Pandora approaches no closer, but her gaze never leaves the flame. You sense something irreversible. The gods gave beauty, skill, speech, charm, desire. But perhaps the most powerful force in Pandora was never explicitly gifted. It awakened naturally. Curiosity. And curiosity rarely dies once ignited. The Greeks understood this with painful clarity. Human progress emerges from questioning, so does catastrophe. Curiosity builds ships, sciences, philosophy, art. Curiosity also opens forbidden doors. Pandora finally tears her gaze from the flame. She turns to Zeus. Her voice is calm, clear, direct. What happens now? The question feels simple, yet every god understands its weight. Zeus answers. Now he says you will descend. Descend. Not wander, not explore. Descend. From Olympus to earth, from immortality to mortality, from divine design to human consequence. Pandora absorbs the words slowly. She does not yet know the name of the man she will meet. She does not yet know the object she will carry. She does not yet know the suffering waiting in history. But somewhere deep within, something stirs. Not fear, not resistance. Something stranger. Anticipation. As if part of her already senses the answers lie below. Among mortals. Among hidden things. Among unopened mysteries. And as the blue-white flame finally dims behind her, you feel the next phase of the myth drawing close. Pandora has received every gift. But one final object remains. An object sealed in silence. An object no one fully explains. An object destined to become legend. The jar waits. When the gifts have all been given and the sacred ceremony ends, an unusual silence settles over Olympus. It is not the peaceful silence of sleep nor the quiet of ordinary stillness. It feels more like expectation, as if every marble hall, every torch flame, every drifting cloud now waits for something unseen to begin. Pandora stands at the centre of that silence, newly adorned, newly awakened, and yet inwardly more unsettled than before. The more she learns, the more she senses how much remains hidden. That is the first true burden of consciousness. Not knowledge, awareness of ignorance. You watch her walk through the outer courts of Olympus for the first time. Gold-white sunlight pours over polished marble terraces. Sacred olive trees cast long, soft shadows across stone pathways. Water runs through carved channels into clear reflecting pools where sky and column blend together. The air smells of laurel incense and mountain wind. Far below, through openings in the clouds, the mortal world glimmers in fragments. Coastlines, islands, valleys, silver sea. Pandora pauses at the edge of a terrace. She stares downward. Her breath catches. What is that? Her voice carries no fear, only wonder. Athena steps beside her, the world of mortals. Pandora studies the distant lands with growing fascination. Smoke rises from villages like thin grey threads. Ships cross shining water. Tiny moving figures barely visible from Olympus live entire lives below. They are small, Pandora says softly. Athena answers yes. Pandora continues watching. They're fragile. Yes? A pause. Why do I feel drawn to them? Athena says nothing. Not because she lacks words. Because some truths reveal themselves only through experience. Pandora senses the silence. Again an answer withheld. Again mystery. Questions accumulate inside her like water behind stone. Why was she made? Why do the gods watch mortals so closely? Why do some answers arrive only halfway? And why beneath all this beauty does Olympus feel strangely guarded? The last question matters most. Because Pandora has begun noticing something subtle. The gods are powerful, radiant, magnificent, but not entirely peaceful. Beneath divine grace lives tension, rivalry, pride, concealed motives. Ancient Greek myths repeatedly emphasized this uncomfortable truth: immortality does not erase conflict. The gods remain intensely emotional beings. They desire envy, compete, punish, and scheme. Pandora sees fragments of this already. A glance held too long. A silence sharpened by resentment. A smile hiding calculation. The more she observes, the more her curiosity grows. As evening approaches, Olympus transforms under torchlight. Marble reflects amber fire. Musicians play soft lyre melodies through columned halls. Nectar glows in golden cups. The sky deepens into violet and silver as stars begin appearing above the mountain. The scene is beautiful enough to feel unreal, and yet Pandora feels restless. Beauty no longer satisfies by itself. She wants understanding. This is important. The Greeks understood desire as expansive. One fulfilled desire often births another. Beauty leads to admiration. Admiration leads to longing. Longing leads to pursuit. Curiosity works the same way. The first unanswered question rarely remains the last. Pandora wanders alone through a corridor lined with ancient carvings. The stone reliefs depict old wars between Titans and Olympians. Lightning strikes, giants fall, mountains split. She runs her fingers across the carved lines. "Who are these?" she asks aloud. A voice answers from behind. "Those who came before order." She turns. Hermes stands there leaning casually against a column. "Before order," Pandora repeats. Hermes smiles faintly. "Every kingdom has a before." Pandora studies the carvings again. So Olympus was not always Olympus. No. Then even gods changed. Hermes watches her carefully. Yes. Pandora turns fully toward him now. Will they change again? The question lands heavily. Hermes' smile fades. For the first time he does not answer quickly. Finally he says, "You ask dangerous questions." Pandora tilts her head. Why are questions dangerous? Hermes exhales softly. Because answers change things. The words sink into her. Answers change things. That idea feels both thrilling and unsettling. Pandora continues walking. Night deepens. Moonlight now mixes with torchlight silver against gold. The air cools. Mountain winds move through open halls. Somewhere distant thunder murmurs beyond cloud banks, though no storm fully forms. Then Pandora notices something strange. At the end of a secluded corridor stands a guarded chamber. No guards in armor. No locked bronze doors. And yet the space feels protected, sacred, restricted. She slows. Something inside her sharpens. Not fear, recognition. As though she has arrived near something important long before understanding why. She takes another step. Then another. A faint sound reaches her. Not quite a voice. Not quite wind. Something softer. Whispering. She freezes. Did she imagine it? Ancient traditions tell different versions here. Some suggest Pandora sensed the jar long before she received it. Others omit this entirely, but many later storytellers preserved a haunting idea that sealed things sometimes call to those destined to open them. Pandora listens. Silence. Then again, a whisper. Too faint to decipher. She moves closer. The chamber door stands partly open. Inside, moonlight falls across a stone pedestal, and upon that pedestal rests an object. A large sealed jar. Simple. Elegant. Ancient. Clay, but unlike mortal pottery. Its surface bears strange inscriptions that seem to shift in torchlight. Bronze bands seal its lid. No ornament celebrates it. No decoration explains it. Yet the object exerts extraordinary gravity. Pandora cannot look away. The whispering grows stronger. Still not understandable. Only presence. Her breathing slows. She steps inside. Cold air brushes her skin. The temperature here feels wrong, cool despite nearby torches. She approaches the pedestal. The jar remains still. Silent now. Almost ordinary, but only almost. Pandora reaches out. A voice stops her. Do not touch it. She jerks back. Zeus stands in the doorway. Moonlight outlines his massive form. His expression is unreadable. Pandora lowers her hand. What is it? Zeus enters slowly. A gift. The word again. Gift. Always gift. Pandora's gaze returns to the jar. For whom? For you. The answer surprises her. For me, yes. Why? Zeus stops beside the pedestal. Because every gift carries a responsibility. Pandora studies the sealed lid. What is inside? Silence. Then Zeus answers, that is not for you to know. There it is. The most dangerous phrase of all. Not for you to know. The Greeks understood forbidden knowledge as profoundly seductive. Prohibition gives mystery shape. A hidden object with no explanation becomes a magnet for imagination. Curiosity grows strongest in silence. Pandora feels it immediately. The hunger, the need. Not desire to disobey. Not yet. Something subtler. Need to understand. She turns to Zeus. Why, give me something I must not know. Even Zeus pauses. It is the sharpest question she has asked. Finally he says, because obedience reveals character. Pandora says nothing, but inwardly something resists. She does not fully understand obedience without understanding purpose. The jar sits between them, still sealed, still silent. Yet now it dominates her thoughts. Zeus steps closer. His voice becomes low and deliberate. You must guard this. Guard. Not open, not inspect. Guard. She nods slowly. Will I keep it here? No. Then where? Zeus looks beyond Olympus, down toward earth, with the one who receives you. Receives. The word confuses her. Who receives me? Zeus meets her eyes. A mortal. Pandora's pulse quickens. The world below suddenly feels nearer. Real. Immediate. She looks once more at the jar, then back to Zeus. One final question rises. She cannot stop it. What happens if it opens? Silence expands. Even wind seems to stop. Zeus answers at last. His voice is calm. Too calm. Then the world changes. No threat. No explanation. Only truth. The world changes. Pandora feels cold despite torchlight. She does not touch the jar again. But something irreversible has happened. The mystery now lives inside her. She has seen the object, heard the warning, received the prohibition, and with that curiosity is no longer abstract. It has found its centre, its shape, its focus. The jar. Later, as she lies beneath a ceiling of gold and shadow, sleep finally comes. But sleep brings a dream. In the dream, she stands before the sealed jar once more. This time the lid is slightly open. Golden light spills out. From within comes not screams, but voices. Many voices, all whispering the same words. Open and no. Pandora wakes before dawn, breathing fast. Heart racing. Moonlight still rests across the floor. The dream lingers like smoke. Open and no. She sits in silence. One truth has become unavoidable. She was created with gifts. But one gift now burns brighter than all others. Curiosity. Before dawn fully breaks over Olympus, Pandora rises from uneasy sleep. The dream still clings to her like mist. Open and no. The words do not sound loud now, not as they did in sleep, but they remain somewhere beneath her thoughts, repeating without voice. She walks barefoot across a polished floor cool as riverstone, and outside the open windows the sky is pale grey, waiting for sunrise. Far below, the mortal world is hidden by clouds. Above, the last stars fade one by one as if even heaven is closing its eyes. The jar waits in the guarded chamber. Pandora knows this without being told. She can feel its location in her mind like a small weight pressing from a distance. That is what frightens her most. Not the object itself, not even Zeus's warning, but the way the jar has begun to occupy her inner world. She's seen many wonders in Olympus bronze that glows like captured sunset, pools that reflect not faces but memories' halls where gods speak in voices older than storms. Yet none of these call to her as the jar does. Why should a sealed thing feel more alive than all the open splendour around it? When she returns to the chamber, Hermes is already there. He stands near the doorway, smiling faintly, though his eyes are sharper than his smile. You dreamed, he says. Pandora stops. How do you know? Hermes lifts one shoulder. Dreams have footsteps. It is the kind of answer he prefers, half explanation, half riddle. Pandora looks past him toward the pedestal. The jar sits in moon-pale shadow, quiet and ordinary enough to make last night's terror feel almost foolish. Its clay surface is smooth, dark, red-brown, marked with bands of black figures, tiny painted shapes of women carrying watermen bending over fields. Birds with open wings and serpents curled beneath strange symbols. Some researchers believe such imagined decoration reflects the ancient Greek habit of placing mythic meaning on pottery, where jars were not merely containers but memory bearers. A jar could hold grain oil, wine ashes, treasure, or offerings for the dead. It could preserve life or mark loss. Pandora steps closer, but not too close. What is inside, she asks. Hermes does not answer immediately. For once his quick tongue slows. A god's decision, he says at last. Pandora turns to him. That is not an answer. No, Hermes says softly, but it may be the truest one. The silence deepens. A cold draught moves through the chamber, though no window is open. Pandora folds her hands, trying to still herself. Athena's gift gives her discipline. Aphrodite's gift gives her grace. Hermes' gift gives her language, yet none of them give peace. She understands now that gifts can crowd the soul. Each divine blessing has made her more capable but also more divided. She can obey, she can question, she can charm, she can doubt. She can feel the pull of beauty and the pressure of command. Which of these is truly hers? The mystery remains. Then Zeus enters. No thunder announces him. That makes his arrival more severe. He carries no lightning in his hand, no visible weapon, only authority. Behind him comes Hephaestus, slower, heavier, his face darkened by forge smoke and concern. Pandora notices that Hephaestus does not look at the jar first. He looks at her. That small act warms her more than any torch. The time has come, Zeus says. Pandora's breath catches. For what? For you to leave Olympus? The word opens a strange emptiness inside her. She's existed only briefly, yet already Olympus feels like origin. Not home, perhaps, but beginning. To leave it means entering the unknown world below the world of mortals' fragility. Hunger, short lives, aging bodies and houses filled with smoke and prayer. She remembers looking down from the terrace drawn to those tiny figures. Now she's to go among them. Zeus gestures toward the jar. You will carry this with you. Pandora's eyes return to it and guard it. Yes, but never open it. Yes. She waits, hoping more will follow. None does. Here the myth becomes deeply psychological. Ancient audiences understood that a command without explanation creates a special torment. Obedience may be simple when trust is complete, but Pandora has been given intelligence. She has been given speech. She's been given questions. To ask her not to know is to place a flame beside dry grass. Some traditions blame Pandora harshly for what comes later. Others, especially modern interpretations, ask whether the gods themselves engineered the conditions of disobedience. If curiosity was built into her, if the jar was placed in her hands, if silence surrounded its purpose, then where does guilt truly begin? Hephaestus moves toward the pedestal. With surprising gentleness he lifts the jar. Though large, it does not seem heavy in his arms. The bronze bands catch the first gold of dawn. A faint sound comes from within, or perhaps Pandora imagines it. A low stirring, like wind trapped underground. She looks at Hephaestus. He hears it too, she can tell. What is that, she whispers. Hephaestus's jaw tightens, a warning perhaps. Zeus turns his gaze upon him. It is sealed. Yes, Hephaestus says, but his voice carries unease. For now. For now. The words tremble in Pandora's mind. There it is again, prophecy disguised as ordinary speech. The vessel will choose. The world changes. Every gift creates hunger. Warning after warning has gathered around her, not like walls, but like paths all leading toward the same hidden place. Zeus places the jar before Pandora. She reaches out and touches the clay. It is cold. Colder than the room. Colder than stone. Beneath her fingertips she feels a faint vibration, not quite movement, not quite sound. Her heart quickens. The lid is sealed firmly with divine craft, yet the seal seems less like protection than restraint. Something inside does not sleep peacefully. Something waits. Remember, Zeus says, you're all gifted. You are not empty. You carry honor from every god. Pandora looks at him carefully. And if I fail? The question is brave. Perhaps too brave. Zeus's expression does not change. Then mortals will learn what it means to live. She does not understand. Not fully. But she feels sorrow in the answer, or something shaped like sorrow. Maybe Zeus believes suffering is the instruction. Maybe he believes humanity must be humbled because fire made them bold. Maybe he believes punishment and order are the same. Ancient traditions do not let us look clearly into his heart. That uncertainty remains one of the myth's darkest chambers. Outside, dawn finally breaks. Gold light spills across Olympus. The clouds below open like torn linen, revealing the earth valleys, rivers, villages, fields, harbours, shrines, and roads winding through olive groves. Somewhere there lives Epimetheus, the brother of Prometheus, the one warned never to accept a gift from Zeus. Somewhere he wakes beneath a mortal sky, unaware that beauty is descending toward him with a sealed jar and a divine command. Pandora lifts the jar into her arms. It is heavier now. Or perhaps responsibility has weight. Hephaestus steps near her and speaks so softly only she can hear. If you ever feel alone, remember that being made by command does not mean your heart belongs to the command. Pandora turns to him, startled. Before she can answer, Hermes arrives with winged sandals glinting in pale light. The road is ready, he says. A road from Olympus to earth, from innocence to consequence, from silence to the first curse of humanity. Pandora takes one last look at the blue-white flame in the distance. It flickers once as if in farewell or warning. Then she follows Hermes into the morning, carrying the jar sealed in silence, while inside it, something ancient listens for the sound of her breath. Far below Olympus, where divine marble gives way to soil reeds, olive groves and weathered stone, another life moves toward the same destiny without knowing it. While Pandora begins her descent from the mountain of gods, you turn your attention to the mortal world, the man who will receive her, and perhaps receive far more than he understands. His name is Epimetheus. To the ancient Greeks, names mattered. They carried essence, warning, and fate. Prometheus meant forethinker, the one who sees ahead. Epimetheus means afterthinker, the one who understands only after action has already shaped consequence. The contrast between the brothers is almost painfully deliberate. One predicts, one reflects too late, one calculates, one feels. Myth often loves such opposites because opposites reveal truth through tension. You find Epimetheus in a valley touched by morning mist. Dew clings to grass. Sheep move slowly through silver light. A stream winds between smooth stones reflecting pale dawn. The air smells of wet earth, pine resin and distant wood smoke rising from small mortal homes. Compared to Olympus, the world feels smaller, simpler, but not lesser. The Greeks understood mortal life as fragile, yes, yet rich with texture precisely because it was temporary. Epimetheus lives in that texture. He's not foolish in the crude sense. Later retellings sometimes reduce him to a naive man blinded by beauty, but that is too easy. He possesses intelligence, warmth, and sensitivity. What he lacks is not thought but foresight. He feels before he calculates. He trusts before he doubts. He lives in the immediate emotional truth of a moment, whereas Prometheus sees long chains of consequence. That difference has shaped the brothers since the beginning. Epimetheus kneels beside a wooden fence repairing a broken rail. His hands are strong but less precise than his brothers. He works patiently, though his mind drifts. That drifting is characteristic. His thoughts move toward memory more than prediction. He revisits conversations, reconsiders choices, wonders what he should have said yesterday. The afterthinker lives partly in the past. As sunlight strengthens, birds begin calling from cypress branches. A hawk circles high overhead. Epimetheus pauses and looks toward the sky. Lately he's felt unsettled, though he cannot explain why. Something invisible presses at the edges of thought. Not fear exactly. Expectation. Ancient Greeks often described such intuition as a subtle divine pressure, a stirring of psyche before destiny arrives. Mortals rarely understood these sensations clearly. They felt them as unease, strange dreams, or recurring thoughts. Epimetheus has been dreaming. 3 nights in a row. The dream changes in detail, but never in essence. He stands before a doorway. Beyond the doorway stands someone he cannot fully see. Light surrounds the figure. Warm, golden, beautiful. And in her hands she carries something dark and sealed. Each time he reaches toward her, he wakes, breathing hard, heart racing. This morning the dream lingers longer than usual. He rubs his temples. Then a familiar voice breaks the silence. "You're distracted." Epimetheus turns. Prometheus stands nearby. Dust from travel clings to his cloak. His face appears more severe than usual. The weight of stolen fire, divine anger, and coming consequences has changed him. Even without words, Prometheus senses tension. "You came early," Prometheus says. Prometheus walks closer. "I came because you must listen." The tone matters. No greeting, no ease, only urgency. Prometheus straightens. "What happened?" Prometheus looks toward the horizon where clouds still gather, around distant Olympus. "Zeus is planning something." Prometheus's shoulders tense. "Against you?" Prometheus answers quietly. "Against us." Wind moves through dry grass. A crow calls once from a distant tree. The atmosphere sharpens. Prometheus steps closer. "What I say now matters more than anything I have ever told you." Prometheus hears the seriousness immediately. Prometheus continues, "No matter what happens, no matter what you are offered, do not accept gifts from Zeus." Silence. The warning lands like stone dropped into still water. Prometheus frowns. "That is all." Prometheus's eyes narrow. "All? You crossed mountains to tell me not to accept gifts." "Yes." Prometheus exhales. "You speak as though Zeus plans war." Prometheus does not smile. In a way, he does. Prometheus studies his brother carefully. Here lies one of the most human moments in the myth. He trusts Prometheus deeply, but he also struggles with his brother's intensity. Forethinkers often sound dramatic to those who live more simply in the present. "What kind of gift?" Prometheus asks. "I don't know." That answer frustrates him immediately. "You don't know." "No." "Then how do you know it is dangerous?" Prometheus pauses, because the truthful answer sounds almost irrational. "Because Zeus does not forgive without purpose." The words hang between them. That logic is difficult to refute. Yet uncertainty remains. Prometheus walks toward the stream. Water rushes softly over stone. He crouches and runs fingers through the cold current. "You always assume the worst." Prometheus answers instantly. "No, I assume consequence." The distinction is sharp. Prometheus looks back, and if Zeus seeks peace, Prometheus's voice hardens. He does not. The brothers fall silent. This silence carries years of difference between them. Not hostility. Friction. Love complicated by worldview. Some scholars interpret the brothers as symbolic halves of human cognition. Planning and reaction. Prediction and emotion. Rational caution and relational trust. If so, their conflict becomes deeply universal. Prometheus kneels beside his brother. His voice softens. "I'm asking you as your brother." Prometheus finally meets his gaze and sees something unsettling. Fear. Prometheus rarely shows fear openly. That changes everything. "What did you do?" Prometheus asks. Prometheus does not answer immediately. "Then, I gave fire back to humanity." Prometheus goes completely still. The stream keeps flowing. Wind continues moving. Birdsong fades into background. "You stole from Olympus." "Yes." "You stole fire." "Yes." Prometheus closes his eyes. Now everything makes terrible sense. Makoni, Zeus's anger, the warning, the urgency. When he opens his eyes again, he sees not merely rebellion, but inevitable retaliation. And retaliation from Zeus is never simple. A strange sound interrupts thought. Far above thunder rolls, but the sky overhead remains mostly clear, a divine sign. Storm without storm. Both brothers notice. Prometheus stands. "Remember." His voice is firm again. "Whatever comes, refuse it." Prometheus rises too. "What if it is not meant for me?" Prometheus answers with chilling certainty. "It will be." The words linger, a prophecy disguised as warning. Then Prometheus turns to leave. Prometheus grabs his arm. "Wait." Prometheus stops. Prometheus struggles to form the question. Finally, "What if you're wrong?" Prometheus does not move. The answer comes almost like sorrow. "Then you lose nothing." He turns slightly. "But if I'm right, you lose everything." Then he leaves. No further explanation. No reassurance. Only warning. Prometheus watches him disappear through olive trees and morning mist. The valley feels quieter now. Too quiet. The crow returns, landing on the fence he repaired earlier. It stares directly at him. Ancient Greeks often treated birds as omens, especially unusual behavior in sacred or emotionally charged moments. The crow tilts its head once, then caws, 3 times, sharp, harsh, unpleasant. Then it flies toward the eastern road. Prometheus follows its path with his eyes. A strange feeling rises inside him. The same feeling from dreams, expectation, presence approaching. He tries to dismiss it. Returns to work, repairs the fence, checks the sheep, carries water, performs ordinary tasks. But ordinary tasks no longer feel ordinary. His mind returns again and again to Prometheus's warning. Do not accept gifts from Zeus. Simple words, impossible burden. Because how do you refuse what you do not recognize? The sun climbs higher. Heat warms the valley. Cicadas begin their midday song. The world appears normal, almost peaceful. Then the dogs bark. Once, twice, then continuously. Prometheus looks toward the eastern road. Dust rises in golden light. Someone is coming. Not a soldier, not a messenger. Something else. His heartbeat quickens. Without knowing why, he already senses it. The dream. The doorway. The light. The figure. It is no longer dream. It is arriving. And somewhere on the road between Olympus and Earth, Pandora walks toward him, carrying beauty mystery and a sealed jar. The Afterthinker now stands at the edge of the choice that will define humanity. He has been warned. He has listened, but listening is not the same as resisting. Soon he will understand that some gifts are hardest to refuse precisely because they awaken loneliness. And Prometheus, though he rarely admits it even to himself, has been lonely for a very long time. The dust rising along the eastern road grows clearer with every passing moment. At first, Prometheus sees only light moving through heat shimmer. Then shape begins to emerge. 2 figures. One swift and graceful, almost weightless in motion. The other slower, carrying something cradled in both arms. Even from a distance, the air around them feels strange, as though ordinary sunlight bends subtly in their presence. The barking dogs retreat whining now instead of warning. Birds fall silent in nearby trees. Prometheus does not move. His pulse becomes loud in his ears. The dream returns in full. The doorway, the golden light, the unseen figure, and now the figure is no longer hidden. She is real. As the travellers approach, the first figure resolves into Hermes, unmistakable even in mortal lands. Dust barely clings to him. Wind seems eager to carry him. His eyes hold that familiar brightness of someone who always knows more than he says. But it is the second figure who arrests all thought. Pandora, she walks beneath open sky for the first time, and the mortal world seems to pause around her. Sunlight rests on her dark hair like liquid bronze. Her garments move with impossible softness in the breeze. Gold threads catch light with each step. Yet it is not mere beauty that overwhelms Prometheus. It is presence. She seems both near and distant, familiar and impossible, like memory from a life never lived. In her arms rests the sealed jar. Dark clay, bronze bands, silent, yet not unnoticed. Prometheus feels his throat tighten. Prometheus's warning strikes his mind with brutal force. Do not accept gifts from Zeus. His body remembers before his heart can argue. Hermes stops a short distance away. A faint smile touches his lips. Prometheus? The Titan says nothing at first. His gaze remains fixed on Pandora. She studies him too. This is her first close look at a mortal, and something inside her shifts. Mortals smell different from gods. Earth, sweat, wood smoke, grain, river water, sun-warmed skin. Not divine incense or nectar. Mortal life carries texture, fragility, imperfection. She notices lines in his hands from labour, dust on his sandals, the rise and fall of breath touched by fatigue. Yet none of this repels her. It fascinates her. This is life touched by time. She feels drawn toward it instantly. Hermes breaks the silence. I bring a gift from Zeus. There it is. No ambiguity. No disguise. The warning stands fully revealed. Prometheus inhales slowly. His brother was right. Every word, Every fear, every omen. His gaze hardens. No. Hermes blinks once. No. I refuse. Hermes folds his arms. You refuse before hearing the offering. Yes. Pandora's expression changes. Not anger. Confusion. Rejection is new to her. She looks between them. Why? The question slips out before she can stop it. Prometheus finally looks directly at her. And everything becomes harder. Prometheus warned him about a gift, not about her voice, not about her eyes, not about the quiet sincerity in that single word. Why? Because it is not manipulative, not calculated. It sounds genuine. That matters. The Greeks understood something subtle about persuasion. The strongest influence often comes not from deliberate seduction but from authentic vulnerability. Pandora's confusion disarms him more than beauty alone could. Prometheus steadies himself. My brother warned me. Pandora tilts her head. About me? The question lands like sorrow. Prometheus hesitates. He hears Prometheus in memory. Refuse it. Not her. It. But she stands here, alive, breathing, looking at him. Not object, not abstract danger. Person. And suddenly the moral tension deepens. Ancient listeners may have felt this too. How do you reject a divine gift when the gift feels conscious? Refusing the gift now feels dangerously close to rejecting a living being. Hermes observes silently. He knows the psychological battlefield is shifting. Pandora steps forward slightly. The jar remains secure in her arms. What did he say, she asks. Prometheus answers carefully. He said Zeus does not give without purpose. Pandora absorbs that. The words sting more than expected. Because they echo her own growing fear. Was she made only for purpose? Only for function? Only for someone else's design? She lowers her gaze briefly, then looks back up. And what if I am more than his purpose? The air stills. Hermes says nothing. Even wind seems to pause. Prometheus feels something crack inside his certainty. That question, it cuts deeper than argument, because it reveals self-awareness. She is not denying Zeus. She is questioning design. That is profoundly human. Historians sometimes note that Pandora becomes far more tragic when read not as villain but as consciousness trapped inside divine intention. In that reading, she's both instrument and victim. Prometheus senses this instinctively. He studies her face. No cruelty, no malice, no hidden delight, only uncertainty and loneliness. He recognizes loneliness because he carries his own. The valley around them glows in afternoon light. Olive leaves shimmer silver green in warm wind. Bees move between wildflowers. Somewhere nearby, water flows over stone. The scent of thyme and sun-baked grass fills the air. Ordinary mortal beauty surrounds an extraordinary meeting. Then an omen appears. A flock of birds rises suddenly from distant cypress trees. Too sudden, too synchronized. They circle overhead once, twice, then split into two spiraling groups, one turning east, one west. Ancient Greeks would have read such patterns with intense attention. Diviners often interpreted bird movement as divine communication. Two spirals separating could symbolize choice division or fate branching. Hermes notices. So does Prometheus. Pandora watches the birds disappear. What does that mean? Hermes answers softly. Sometimes the gods speak in symbols. Pandora asks the inevitable. What are they saying? Hermes gives a rare honest answer. I do not know. The uncertainty deepens everything. Even divine messengers do not always understand fate. Pandora shifts the jar slightly. Its weight presses into her arms. Responsibility. Burden. Mystery. She looks again at Prometheus. May I ask something? He nods slowly. Are you lonely? The question hits with startling force. No defense. No rhetoric. Direct truth. Prometheus cannot answer immediately. Because the answer is yes. Painfully yes. Prometheus visits but rarely stays. Mortals live nearby but not close enough to fill silence. Days pass in labour. Nights pass in thought. Dreams fade by dawn. He has lived with emptiness so long he stopped naming it. Pandora sees it. Aphrodite's gift helps her perceive longing. Athena's gift helps her recognize patterns. Hermes' gift helps her ask the exact question, and curiosity drives her toward truth. Epimetheus finally speaks. Yes, a whisper, but enough. Pandora's expression softens. So am I. The words undo him. Because loneliness recognized becomes intimacy. The Greeks understood companionship as sacred protection against chaos. Household, marriage, kinship, these were not merely social structures, but defenses against isolation and disorder. Hermes sees the outcome before it fully happens. Prometheus's warning is failing, not through trickery, through connection. Pandora takes one final step forward. Close now, close enough for Epimetheus to hear her breathing, close enough to feel warmth from her skin, close enough that refusal becomes almost unbearable. My name is Pandora, she says. The name settles into mortal air for the first time. Pandora, all gifted, all given, all burdened. Prometheus repeats it quietly. Pandora, the name feels beautiful and heavy. She offers no seduction, only truth. I do not fully know why I was made, she says. I do not know everything Zeus intends. I only know this. She pauses. Her next words come from somewhere deeper than divine instruction. I do not want to be treated like an object being delivered. Silence. Then, I want to choose. The prophecy returns with chilling clarity. The vessel will choose. Epimetheus feels the final walls of resistance collapsing, because now the decision no longer feels like accepting Zeus's gift. It feels like honoring her agency, her humanity, or perhaps the illusion of it. He does not know. And that uncertainty is precisely where fate becomes unstoppable. Hermes watches. The valley holds its breath. The jar remains silent. For now, Epimetheus closes his eyes briefly. Prometheus's warning burns inside him, but so does another truth. If he turns away now, he abandons someone who seems as uncertain as he is. When he opens his eyes, the choice has been made. He steps aside. The gesture is small, irreversible. You may enter, he says. Pandora exhales. Relief washes over her face. Hermes smiles not triumphantly but knowingly. The road behind them fades into evening light. Ahead lies the house, the hearth, the marriage, the sealed jar, and destiny now no longer approaching. Destiny has arrived. As the sun begins its slow descent toward the western hills, Pandora crosses the threshold of Epimetheus's home. The moment feels quiet, almost ordinary, yet ancient Greeks would have understood its weight immediately. Thresholds were sacred spaces. To cross from outside into household interior was never just movement through a doorway. It meant transition. Stranger to guest, guest to kin, solitude to shared life. Fate often entered not through battlefields but through doors. Pandora pauses just inside. The house is simple compared with Olympus, yet alive in ways divine halls were not. Stone walls hold warmth from the day. Cedar beams carry the scent of dry wood and resin. Clay vessels line shelves. Bundles of herbs hang from rafters. Thyme, mint, sage, wild lavender. Olive oil lamps cast amber light across packed earth floors. A hearth glows at the centre flames crackling softly, breathing warmth into the room. The smell of bread ash and wood smoke fills the air. Pandora closes her eyes briefly. The sensation overwhelms her. Warmth here feels different from divine fire. Less perfect, more intimate. Olympus radiated grandeur. This place radiates life. She opens her eyes and studies everything with quiet fascination. Her fingers brush rough stone. She kneels beside the hearth and extends a hand toward flame. Fire dances across her gaze. Prometheus's stolen gift now burns at the center of mortal existence. Cooking warmth, ritual comfort. Civilization condensed into flame. The irony would not be lost on ancient audiences. Fire restored humanity. Yet because of fire, Zeus created Pandora. Gift answered by gift. Punishment hidden inside beauty. Epimetheus watches her carefully. The more time passes, the more his certainty dissolves. Whatever Zeus intended, Pandora does not feel like a trap walking on 2 feet. She feels curious, vulnerable and startlingly sincere. That sincerity disorients him more than beauty ever could. Hermes remains only a short while. He stands near the doorway, wings at his sandals catching fading sunlight. His work is almost done. Before leaving, he turns to Prometheus. "You understand what has happened?" Prometheus says nothing. Hermes continues, "The choice is yours now." A curious statement, because technically the choice has already been made. Pandora has entered. Yet Hermes speaks as though deeper choices remain ahead. Pandora looks toward him. "Will I see Olympus again?" Hermes' expression softens. "Perhaps." The answer feels true and evasive at once. Pandora frowns slightly. She is learning that divine speech often protects itself through ambiguity. Hermes gives one last glance toward the sealed jar resting near the wall. Then he leaves. No thunder, no dramatic departure. Only swift motion and fading presence. Silence settles. Now only two remain: Prometheus, Pandora, and the jar. The jar matters even in stillness. Though placed quietly against the wall, it changes the atmosphere of the room. The Greeks often understood sacred objects as active presences. An altar changed a courtyard, a statue changed a temple, a sealed vessel charged with a divine intention changed an entire household. Pandora feels it constantly, even when not looking. Especially when not looking. Evening deepens. Outside, cicadas sing, sheep settle in distant pens. Wind moves through olive branches with soft, dry whispers. Above, the first stars appear. Prometheus breaks the silence. "You can stay." Pandora looks at him. "For tonight." He hesitates, then answers honestly, "For as long as you wish." The words surprise even him. Pandora studies his face. No manipulation, no demand, only cautious openness. She feels something new. Trust beginning. That feeling frightens her less than mystery. She asks quietly, "Why did you let me in?" The question deserves truth. Prometheus moves closer to the hearth. Flames reflect in his eyes. "My brother warned me not to accept gifts from Zeus." Pandora lowers her gaze. "I know. You knew." She nods. "I suspected." Silence. Then, "Did you think I would refuse?" Pandora answers after a long pause, "Yes." The honesty stings. "Then why come?" Her answer emerges slowly. "Because not coming would still make me part of someone else's decision." Prometheus absorbs this. She continues, "I wanted at least one choice to be mine." The words strike deeply. Ancient Greek audiences would recognize the tragedy. Even within fate, characters seek agency. They may not control destiny, but they fight to preserve meaning within constraint. Pandora sits near the hearth. Her voice softens. "I do not know whether I am blessing or punishment." The confession hangs between them. Prometheus feels a sudden ache. Because loneliness now has a mirror. He sits opposite her. "Neither do I." For the first time since leaving Olympus, Pandora laughs. Softly. Not mockery. Relief. The sound transforms the room. Human warmth begins replacing divine tension. Hours pass. They speak. Not grand truths. Small things. Pandora asks about seasons, rain, sheep harvest, cooking, stars, bread, music, rivers. Her curiosity moves endlessly. Each answer births another question. Sometimes Prometheus laughs at how quickly she leaps from one mystery to another. Why do leaves fall? Why does bread rise? Why does smoke climb? Why do people dream? Why does sadness hurt physically? Why do mortals sing when they know they will die? That last question silences him. He stares into fire, then answers. Maybe because beauty matters more when time is short. Pandora goes still. The answer moves through her like prophecy. Beauty matters more when time is short. Mortality sharpens meaning. She begins to understand why Prometheus loved humanity, not despite mortality. Because of it. Outside clouds gather, thin at first, then thicker. Moonlight appears and disappears behind moving sky. An omen forms. A ring around the moon. Pale silver halo. Ancient Greeks often treated lunar halos as warnings of change storm or divine attention. Prometheus notices first. He steps outside. Pandora follows. They stand beneath the night sky together. The halo glows. Beautiful. Unsettling. Pandora whispers, What does it mean? Prometheus answers honestly. I don't know. She almost smiles. You say that more than the gods. Yes. Why? He looks upward. Because mortals are honest about uncertainty. The words linger. Pandora feels something profound shift inside. On Olympus, ignorance felt like limitation. Here uncertainty feels human, real, even intimate. The wind grows cooler. She wraps her arms around herself. Prometheus notices. Without thinking, he places a wool cloak over her shoulders. Simple gesture. No ceremony, yet deeply meaningful. Warmth shared. Protection offered. Household beginning. Ancient marriage in Greek thought centered less on romantic ideal and more on household union continuity, mutual function and sacred domestic order. Yet myths often humanize these structures through emotional moments like this. Pandora turns toward him. Why are you kind to me? He answers immediately. Because you seem afraid. Her breath catches. She did not realize how visible fear had become. She whispers, I am. Of me? She shakes her head. Of what follows? The wind strengthens. Olive branches sway. Far away thunder murmurs. Storm still distant. Watching. Prometheus takes a slow breath. Then speaks words that alter everything. You don't have to face it alone. The sentence feels small. It is enormous. Pandora closes her eyes briefly. Loneliness loosens. Connection forms. Trust deepens. And fate grows harder to resist. Days later, their union becomes formal. Simple but sacred. No Olympian spectacle. No divine choir. Only mortal ritual beneath open sky. Neighbours gather. Oil lamps glow. Bread and wine are shared. Hands are joined before sacred flame. Prayers rise to gods who already know too much. Pandora and Prometheus stand together as husband and wife. Ancient marriage customs treated fire as witness. The hearth flames symbolized continuity, home lineage, and sacred order. How fitting. Fire stolen from Zeus now witnesses the union born from Zeus's punishment. Irony tightens. Night deepens. Guests depart. Silence returns. Inside the house, the hearth burns low. The jar rests near the wall. Unopened, untouched, yet present. Always present. Pandora lies awake long after Prometheus sleeps. Moonlight slips through the doorway. Silver light touches the jar. Then, a sound. Soft. Almost nothing. A whisper. She freezes. Listens. Again. Not wind. Not fire. A whisper. From inside the jar, her pulse quickens. The words are faint. Barely formed. But unmistakable. A single phrase. Pandora. Her name. Spoken from within the sealed darkness. She does not move. Breathing shallow. Eyes locked on the jar. The whisper comes once more. Gentle. Patient. Waiting. And for the first time true fear enters her heart. Because mystery has stopped being silent. It has begun speaking back. The whisper does not come again that night. That almost makes it worse. Pandora remains motionless beneath woven blankets. Her eyes fixed on the jar standing near the wall where moonlight spills across its curved surface. The bronze seals gleam faintly cold and still. Nothing moves. No sound follows. Beside her, Prometheus sleeps with slow, steady breath, unaware that the silence inside their home has changed forever. Had she imagined it? The question becomes immediate refuge. Perhaps exhaustion created illusion. Perhaps drifting between waking and sleep blurred sound into dream. Ancient Greeks took such moments seriously. The border between dream omen, divine message, and ordinary imagination was never clean. A whisper in darkness could be prophecy, or memory, or fear wearing a voice. But one fact refuses to fade. The voice knew her name. Pandora does not sleep again before dawn. Morning arrives with birdsong and pale gold light across stone walls. The ordinary rhythms of mortal life begin as they always do. Bread is prepared, water is carried, fire is fed with dry wood, sheep call from the hillside, smoke rises through cool air. Everything appears unchanged, yet inside Pandora, everything feels altered. She tries to focus on daily tasks. Athena's gift guides her hands with graceful competence. She learns astonishingly fast. Grain becomes flour, flour becomes dough, thread becomes woven cloth. Olive oil pours with practiced precision. Household order begins taking shape around her. This is important. Ancient Greek life centered deeply on the oikos, the household. The household was more than shelter. It was economy, lineage, ritual, labor, inheritance, and identity. A well-run home reflected moral order. In many ways, Pandora is excelling at exactly what the gods equipped her to do. And yet, her mind keeps returning to the jar, even while kneading bread, even while washing clay vessels, even while listening to Prometheus describe seasonal weather. A second consciousness runs beneath daily life. The sealed thing waits. She catches herself glancing towards it again and again, not intentionally, instinctively. Curiosity no longer feels like simple interest. It feels gravitational. By midday, heat settles across the valley. Cicadas sing loudly in olive trees. Warm wind carries the scent of thyme, dry grass, and sun-heated stone. Prometheus leaves briefly to inspect fencing along the pasture. Pandora remains alone with the jar. The house suddenly feels different, larger, quieter. The crackle of the hearth becomes louder. Water dripping from a clay vessel becomes rhythmic. Even her own breathing feels intrusive. She tries to ignore the jar. Fails. She works. Stops. Works again. Stops. At last she turns. The jar stands unchanged. Ordinary. Silent. Beautiful in its strange austerity. No jewels. No glowing magic. No visible threat. Just clay and bronze. That simplicity intensifies the mystery. Why seal something so carefully? Why forbid knowledge so absolutely? Why give responsibility without explanation? Pandora approaches. One step, then another. Bare feet whisper across packed earth. She stops several feet away. Her heart beats faster. No whisper comes. Only silence. She speaks softly. Did you call me? No answer. A foolish question, perhaps. Yet not entirely foolish. Silence continues. Pandora exhales. She almost laughs at herself. Then, a sound. Tiny, inside, like fingernails brushing ceramic. She freezes. The sound stops. Every muscle tightens. Ancient listeners would understand this moment intimately. Terror often grows not from visible danger but from uncertain signals. Did something move? Was it real imagination and reality? Blur. Fear thrives in ambiguity. Pandora whispers again. What is you? The jar remains silent, but a thought appears in her mind. Not exactly heard, more like formed, open. She jerks backward, breathing sharp. No voice filled the room, yet the impulse felt external, intrusive. She presses both hands against her temples. No, the word escapes before she consciously chooses it. No, she turns away, walks to the doorway, forces herself outside. Sunlight floods her skin. Warmth helps. Reality returns. She stands among olive trees trying to steady her breathing. When Prometheus returns later, he notices immediately. You're pale. Pandora forces calm. I'm tired. He studies her. Not convinced. What happened? She hesitates. This matters. Trust invites confession. Fear invites secrecy. She chooses trust. I heard something. Prometheus sets down the tools in his hands. Something in the jar. Silence. The words change the air. He looks toward the house, then back at her. What did you hear? My name. His jaw tightens. He wants to dismiss it. Cannot. Prometheus's warning returns with cruel force. Do not accept gifts from Zeus. Prometheus lowers his voice. Did you open it? No. Touch it. Yes. How much? Pandora blinks. How much? How often? The question sounds harsher than intended. Pandora stiffens. Prometheus notices. Regret comes immediately. I'm sorry. Silence. Then Pandora speaks. Quietly. Do you fear me? The question cuts deeper than accusation. Prometheus exhales slowly. No. Do you fear the jar? A pause. Yes. More than you trust me. He says nothing. And silence answers too clearly. Pandora feels the sting instantly. Not anger, sadness. Because the jar is beginning to create distance. Not opened, yet already dividing. The Greeks often understood curses as progressive. Destruction rarely arrives all at once. It enters through suspicion, tension, erosion of trust. The curse may already be working. Unopened. Prometheus steps closer. I trust you. Pandora meets his gaze. Then tell me something honestly. He nods. She asks the question she has avoided. If curiosity lives inside me, is that my fault? The valley falls quiet. Even cicadas seem distant. Prometheus struggles. There is no easy answer. At last he says, no. She continues. If the gods made me curious, yes. If they gave me something forbidden, yes. If they refuse explanation, his voice softens, yes. Then she asks the question neither wants. Why am I blamed before doing anything? The words strike like truth. Prometheus has no answer. Because she is right. Painfully right. Some modern interpretations see Pandora not as source of evil, but as reflection of human projection, a figure burdened with blame for consequences engineered by higher powers. Ancient traditions vary, but the question remains haunting. Why blame the hand that opens and not the hand that designs the trap? Prometheus reaches for her hand. She allows it. Warm skin, living connection. He speaks carefully. You are not the jar. Pandora's eyes glisten slightly. Then why does it feel like everyone sees me through it? The question lingers. No answer satisfies. Evening approaches. The sky deepens toward amber and crimson. Shadows stretch across the valley. The smell of roasting grain returns with dusk. Life resumes its rhythms, yet tension remains. That night they eat quietly beside the hearth. The jar sits near the wall, silent, watching, or seeming to watch. Then another omen comes. The fire changes. Without warning, one flame in the hearth burns blue-white. The same strange colour seen in prophecy, seen in the forge, seen near her creation. Pandora stares. Her breath catches. Prometheus sees it too. The blue flame rises higher, still silent, then shrinks. Normal orange returns. Gone. Neither speaks for several heartbeats. Finally Pandora whispers, "It followed me." Prometheus feels cold despite the fire. The sign confirms what both feared. This is no imagination. Something divine still moves around the jar. Around her. Around destiny. Night deepens. Wind brushes the walls. Prometheus eventually sleeps. Pandora does not. Again, she lies in darkness listening. Waiting, fighting thought, fighting impulse, fighting hunger. Because now, curiosity has changed form. At first it was wonder, then mystery. Now it becomes pressure, a need that almost aches physically. She begins understanding something terrifying. Curiosity is not merely desire to know. It can become suffering, a wound caused by absence of answer. Hours pass. Moonlight returns. Silver light touches the jar. And then the whisper comes again. Clearer, closer, gentler than before. Not threatening, not monstrous, almost compassionate. Pandora. She shuts her eyes. The whisper continues. You deserve to know. Her fingers curl into blankets. Heart racing. No movement. No answer. The voice becomes softer still. Why do you obey those who hide truth from you? Tears sting unexpectedly in her eyes, because the words touch the deepest wound. Not fear, not temptation, injustice. She has been told, commanded, directed, warned, but never trusted with truth. The whisper speaks one final sentence, and everything inside her changes. Open and understand why you were made. Silence returns, but the sentence remains. Burning, open and understand. Pandora stares into darkness, and for the first time, a terrible possibility enters her mind. What if opening the jar is not disobedience, but revelation? The next day begins under a sky without clouds, but the brightness feels strangely thin, as if sunlight has been stretched too far across the valley. Pandora moves through the house with quiet care, tending the hearth, folding cloth, grinding grain, carrying water from the spring where reeds bend in the morning wind. Her hands perform every task well, almost beautifully, yet her thoughts remain elsewhere. The jar has become an inner landscape. Even when she turns her back to it, she feels its presence like a second shadow. Prometheus notices, though. He tries not to press too hard. Something delicate has formed between them, and both fear breaking it. He wants to protect her from the jar, but protection can resemble control when it offers no understanding. Pandora wants to trust him, but trust becomes difficult when even kindness asks her not to ask. By afternoon, heat gathers over the stones. Bees hum among wild herbs. A shepherd's flute sounds faintly from a hillside, lonely and sweet. Pandora sits outside beneath an olive tree, twisting a strand of wool between her fingers. Prometheus approaches slowly. "You have not slept," he says. She does not deny it. Neither of you. He almost smiles, but the smile fades. I keep hearing my brother's voice. Pandora looks toward the distant road as if Prometheus might appear again between the trees. What would he do? Prometheus exhales. He would say, "I should have refused you." The words hurt, but less than they once might have. Pandora has begun to understand Prometheus through absence. The forethinker sees danger before tenderness. He sees traps before faces. Perhaps that is wisdom. Perhaps it is loneliness of another kind, she says quietly. And what do you say? Prometheus sits beside her. I say, "I'm glad you came. This is not enough to solve anything, but it is enough to soften the air between them." A breeze moves through silver leaves overhead, making them shimmer like small fish in sunlit water. For a moment the world is calm. Then a raven lands on a nearby stone wall. It turns its head and looks directly at Pandora. Once, twice, 3 times it taps its beak against the stone. Prometheus goes still. Pandora feels the old chill return, birds again, omens again. The raven lifts its wings and flies toward the house, circling once above the roof, before vanishing toward the west. What does it mean? Pandora asks. Prometheus answers truthfully. A warning, maybe. She closes her eyes. Everything is a warning. That is the weariness of prophecy. When every sign points toward danger, danger begins to feel less avoidable and more like destination. Ancient Greek myth often surrounds decisive moments with omens, not to prevent them, but to deepen the sorrow of recognition. The world speaks, humans hear, yet fate still advances. Evening comes slowly. The sky turns bronze, then rose, then violet. Distant mountains darken into solemn shapes. Inside the house, the hearth burns low and fragrant smoke curls toward the roof beams. Prometheus prepares a simple meal of bread, olives, cheese, and watered wine. They eat together in quiet companionship. The jar stands where it always stands. Pandora refuses to look at it. That refusal takes nearly all her strength. At last, Prometheus speaks. Maybe we should bury it. Pandora's eyes lift. Would that end it? He hesitates. I don't know. Or would it still call from underground? He has no answer. She continues, voice soft but steady. Maybe hiding a hidden thing only makes it stronger. This thought frightens him because it sounds true. Many ancient households buried offerings, ashes, and sacred objects in the earth, trusting the ground as both container and witness. But this jar does not feel like something Earth would accept peacefully. Prometheus reaches across the low table and takes Pandora's hand. Promise me you will not open it tonight. The request is gentle, desperate. Pandora looks at their joined hands. Warmth, trust, fear, love beginning beneath shadow. She wants to promise. She wants that promise to be easy. But honesty has become the one freedom she can still claim. I promise I will try, she says. Prometheus closes his eyes and she knows it is not the answer he wanted. Night deepens. Outside, wind rises. It moves through cypress and olive branches with a dry whispering sound too much like voices. The moon climbs behind torn clouds. Its light enters the house in narrow silver bars. Prometheus eventually lies down, exhausted by dread. Pandora remains seated beside the hearth until the embers dim red. The jar waits across the room. She feels no triumph, no rebellion, no simple temptation. Only pressure, sorrow, and a terrible desire for truth. At last, sleep takes her where she sits, and in sleep the dream comes. She stands in a vast field beneath a starless sky. The ground is cracked and dry. From the cracks rise voices, coughing, weeping, calling, praying. She sees old age bending back, sickness entering houses, hunger, sitting beside empty bowls, grief kneeling beside graves. Then the scene changes. She sees the same world with firelight in windows, mothers singing to children hands, planting seed lovers holding each other through winter, mourners remembering the dead and small lamps kept burning in darkness. At the centre of it all stands the jar sealed and trembling. A voice speaks not from within the jar now, but from above and below at once. Sorrow will come, but so will endurance. Pandora turns in the dream and sees a faint shape behind her, Prometheus, bound in shadow fire still glowing in his eyes. He does not accuse her. He only says what is given cannot be ungiven. Then Hephaestus appears beside the jar, sorrowful and kind. Being made by command does not mean your heart belongs to the command. Finally, Zeus appears as thunder behind clouds unseen but immense. Then mortals will learn what it means to live. Pandora wakes with a gasp. The house is dark. The hearth is nearly dead. Prometheus sleeps uneasily, murmuring as if trapped in his own dream. The jar is whispering, not one voice now, many. Some plead, some warn, some weep, some laugh softly in ways that chill the blood. But beneath them all is one final quiet voice gentler than the rest. Open, and the truth begins. Pandora rises. Her bare feet touch the cold floor. One step, then another. The moon slips free of cloud and silver light falls directly upon the sealed lid. Her hand trembles as she reaches toward it. The night holds its breath. Pandora's hand hovers above the sealed lid, trembling in moonlight. The house is silent except for Prometheus's uneasy breathing and the low murmur from within the jar. She does not feel wicked. That is important. She does not feel hungry for destruction or eager to betray or proud in rebellion. She feels sorrowfully awake. She feels as though the entire world has narrowed into one question. Why was she given a mystery and forbidden to understand it? The clay beneath her fingertips is colder than night air. The bronze seal seems to pulse faintly, as if something inside presses against it with patient strength. The voices become softer now, almost kind, open and no. Outside the wind drops, olive branches stop moving, even the dogs do not stir. In Greek myth, moments of catastrophe often arrive with unnatural stillness, as if nature itself pauses before history changes direction. Pandora draws one breath, then another. She thinks of Zeus saying obedience reveals character. She thinks of Hephaestus saying her heart does not belong to command. She thinks of Prometheus asking for trust. She thinks of the dream of sorrow and endurance, of Prometheus bound in shadow. And then, with no cry, no anger, no triumph, she lifts the lid. For one heartbeat, nothing happens. The silence is complete. Then the jar exhales. A cold wind bursts through the room, so powerful that the hearth embers scatter like red stars across the floor. Pandora staggers backward. The lid slips from her hand and strikes the ground with a dull sound. From the dark mouth of the jar rises a shape like smoke, then another, each one formless at first, then half-formed, then terrible in its suggestion. Not monsters with clear faces, not beasts with claws, but presences older than speech. Sickness comes first, thin and pale, moving like mist beneath the door. It brushes the sleeping air of the house and passes into the world. Hunger follows, hollow-eyed and dry-mouthed, smelling of empty fields and cracked bowls. Toil comes bent beneath invisible weight, carrying the sound of stone against stone plough, against earth, hands blistering beneath sun. Grief rises next, wrapped in dark veils, and its passing makes Pandora's heart ache before she knows why. Old age follows slowly, trembling yet unstoppable, leaving behind the faint scent of dust-dried leaves and cold beds. Then come envy, weariness, pain, fear, fever, quarrel, betrayal, and the long grey shadow of death waiting behind them all. They rush past her, not striking her, not pausing as if she's only the doorway through which they were meant to pass. The house fills with sound, not loud at first, but layered, coughing from distant rooms not yet built, mothers crying over children not yet born, soldiers gasping on fields, not yet stained, farmers groaning beneath harvests that fail, lovers whispering last words in centuries still far away. Pandora hears human history before it happens. She cries out and reaches for the lid, but the forces pour faster now, a storm of invisible consequence. The walls seem to stretch. The roof beams groan. Outside, the night sky darkens, though the moon still shines. Across valleys and islands, mortals wake suddenly with fear they cannot name. A child begins to cough. An old man feels pain settle into his bones. A woman dreams of a grave. A farmer sleeping beside his tools dreams of endless labour beneath a merciless sun. The world is not destroyed. That is the cruel subtlety. It remains beautiful. The stars remain. The sea continues breathing against the shore. Olive trees still silver under moonlight. But something has entered everything. The Greeks imagined suffering not as an accident, but as a condition that came into human life through divine consequence, through broken trust, through the dangerous closeness of gifts and punishment. Pandora falls to her knees, struggling against the wind. "Stop," she whispers, then louder. "Stop." But release things do not obey the hand that releases them. Prometheus wakes with a shout. He sees Pandora, the open jar, the smoke-like figures escaping into darkness. And in that instant, Prometheus's warning returns with devastating clarity. He does not curse her, not at first. His face holds horror too deep for words. He runs to her, and together they seize the lid. The remaining voices inside shriek, plead, laugh, and weep. The jar bucks beneath their hands as if alive. Pandora feels something still within it, something smaller than the others, quieter, not rushing outward but waiting in the deepest chamber. For one strange moment she senses warmth beneath the cold, a gentle light, a presence unlike the rest. But Prometheus is shouting now, "Close it," and she obeys. Together they force the lid down. The bronze seal catches. The jar shudders once, twice, then falls silent. The wind stops. The room darkens. Hearth smoke drifts slowly upward. Pandora remains kneeling, hands still pressed to the lid, breath broken. Cheeks wet with tears she does not remember shedding. Prometheus steps back, staring at the jar, then at her. Outside, far away, thunder rolls over the mountains. Not rage now, judgment, or perhaps mourning. No one could know. Pandora whispers, "What have I done?" Prometheus has no answer. The first curse of humanity has entered the world, and still inside the sealed jar something remains. Something that did not escape. Something the Greeks would later call hope. But whether hope was saved for humanity or trapped away from it is a mystery still waiting in the dark. For a long time neither Pandora nor Prometheus moves. They remain beside the sealed jar, frozen between disbelief and exhaustion, listening for any sign that something else might still emerge. But the house has gone silent again. Only the faint crackle of dying embers remains, The wind no longer howls. The smoke-like spirits have gone. They're already moving through valleys, harbours, fields, palaces and shepherd camps, weaving themselves into mortal existence. Humanity does not vanish. Instead, life becomes heavier. That is the deepest cruelty. Suffering does not end the world. It becomes part of living within it. Pandora slowly lifts her hands from the lid. Her fingers shake violently. They feel numb, as though the cold of the jar has seeped into bone. She stares at her palms, half expecting them to be marked, burned or stained. They look unchanged. That unsettles her even more. Catastrophe has passed through ordinary hands. Ancient audiences would have felt the weight of that truth. Great ruin does not always arrive through monstrous evil. Sometimes it arrives through familiar gestures. A hand opening a lid, a question pursued too far, a moment of hesitation overcome by need. Prometheus finally speaks, though his voice sounds unfamiliar, raw from shock. You opened it. The words are simple, but they carry no accusation yet, only stunned recognition. Pandora closes her eyes. Yes. Silence follows. Then she whispers, I heard them. They said truth was inside. Prometheus looks toward the jar. And was it the question lands harder than anger? Pandora struggles to answer. Was truth inside? She saw suffering. She felt centuries of grief. But she also felt something else, something that did not escape. She turns back toward the jar, breathing shallowly. Then she hears it. Not with ears at first, with feeling. Warmth, faint but unmistakable. Her head lifts. There is still something inside. Prometheus stiffens. No. His answer comes too quickly. Fear speaks before reason. We leave it sealed. Pandora does not argue immediately. She understands his terror. She shares it. Yet the presence within the jar feels utterly different from what escaped. No sharp whisper. No predatory persuasion. No cold hunger. This feels gentle, quiet, almost patient. She moves closer again. Prometheus catches her wrist. No, she looks at him. His face now reveals what shock had hidden. Fear, anger, despair. And beneath all of it, pain. Not only from what has happened, from betrayal. Prometheus warned him. He ignored the warning. He welcomed Pandora. He trusted her. Or tried to. Now the curse has entered the world through his house. Pandora sees the fracture forming. Not fully broken, but cracked. She speaks softly. I felt something inside. That is what it wanted. No, how do you know? She hesitates. Because she does not know. Not fully. Only intuition. Ancient Greeks often treated intuition with strange respect. Not equal to prophecy, not equal to logic, but not meaningless either. Some truths arrived as felt knowing rather than proof. Pandora presses a hand against her chest. It doesn't feel like the others. Prometheus releases her wrist slowly. His voice lowers. What if that is another trick? The question is fair. Terribly fair. Pandora turns toward the jar once more. This time the silence deepens around them. Then a sound. Soft. Small. Not a whisper. A breath. And from within comes a voice unlike the others. Clear, gentle, tired. Pandora. Prometheus goes pale. He heard it too. The voice continues. I'm still here. Pandora's eyes widen. Who are you? A pause. Then one word. Hope. The word settles into the room like warm light. Hope. In Greek, later poets would call it elpis. Yet even among scholars today, debate remains fierce. What exactly did hope mean in the original myth? Was it comfort, expectation, delusion, strength? Some historians argue hope was humanity's final blessing, preserved from escape so it could remain available. Others suggest something darker, that hope itself was trapped, withheld from humanity, leaving mortals with suffering but without relief. The ambiguity is haunting, and now you stand at the centre of that mystery. Pandora whispers, Why did you stay? Hope answers softly, I did not flee. Why, Because I was waiting. For what? For choice. The word chills both of them. Choice. Again, the vessel will choose. The prophecy returns. Hope continues. The others rushed outward because they sought dominion. I remain because I do not force entry. Pandora feels tears returning. Should I release you? Silence. Then the answer. No one can answer that for you. Prometheus steps backward. No, his voice is firm now. No more. Pandora turns. Listen to it. I am listening. No, you are hearing fear, and you are hearing temptation. The tension sharpens. Trust strains. This is what curses do. Not merely wound bodies. They divide hearts. Pandora rises slowly. Moonlight cuts across the floor between them like silver water. She looks at Prometheus and her voice breaks. Do you hate me? The question finally emerges. The one fear greater than the jar. Prometheus closes his eyes. He sees Prometheus. He sees the warning. He sees the lid open. He sees suffering spill into the world. Then he sees her. Pandora as she first arrived. Curious, lonely, uncertain. Not malicious. Never malicious. When he opens his eyes again, sorrow fills them. No. Pandora trembles. Then what do you feel? He struggles for truth. Finally, I feel grief. The answer pierces more deeply than anger, because grief means something precious has been lost. Not only innocence, trust without fear, love without shadow. The Greeks understood grief as sacred acknowledgement of value. You grieve only what mattered. Pandora kneels beside the jar once more. Hope remains silent. Waiting, always waiting. No demand, no persuasion, just presence. That difference matters profoundly. Hope does not seduce, it invites. Outside, dawn begins faintly at the horizon. Night blue softens towards grey. Somewhere a rooster cries. Somewhere waves strike harbour stone. Somewhere across Greece suffering begins its work. Fever rises, hunger deepens, old age aches, labour exhausts, grief enters homes. Yet something else begins too. A mother comforts a sick child. A farmer plants seed despite drought. A widow lights a lamp after burial. A sailor repairs a damaged sail before storm season. Why? Because even after suffering arrives, human action continues. This paradox lies at the heart of the myth. Why continue when pain becomes inevitable? Pandora suddenly understands, before the voice even speaks again. Hope was never merely optimism. Hope is persistence. The refusal to stop living. The refusal to surrender meaning. The refusal to let suffering become total. The voice returns, quiet as dawn. Without me sorrow becomes final. Pandora closes her eyes. Hope continues. With me sorrow remains sorrow, but not the end. Prometheus says nothing. His breathing slows. Even he feels the truth. If suffering has entered the world, something must answer it. Not erase it. Answer it. Pandora places both hands on the lid. She does not open it. Not yet. But for the first time since the jar opened, fear loosens slightly. Because now she understands the deeper cruelty of Zeus's design. The curse was never only suffering. It was forcing humanity to live with suffering. And perhaps the greatest mystery is this. Did Zeus leave hope behind as mercy, or did hope remain despite him and May? Scholars still debate. The myth refuses certainty. Pandora opens her eyes. Dawnlight now touches the jar. Gold across dark clay. She whispers to the presence within. I will choose. Hope answers with perfect calm. I know. And in that fragile light between night and morning, Pandora realizes something profound. The first curse has already changed humanity, but the final meaning of that curse has not yet been decided. Dawn fully breaks across Greece and the world looks almost unchanged. That is perhaps the most unsettling part. Sunlight still pours over marble temples and rough stone cottages. Fishermen still push boats into silver blue water. Shepherds still guide flocks through dew-covered grass. Merchants still open market stalls filled with olives, figs, grain oil and clay vessels. Children still run barefoot through dusty lanes. The sea still breathes against harbour walls. The mountains still rise beneath drifting cloud. Beauty remains. Order appears intact. And yet the world is no longer the world it was. The curse has entered not by destroying life, but by inhabiting it. You begin to see the change not in grand spectacle but in details. An old fisherman who yesterday moved easily now feels sharp pain in his joints as he pulls his net. A mother wakes to find her child burning with fever. A farmer notices that the soil, though fertile, now demands harsher labour to yield the same harvest. A potter's hands cramp before sunset. A young woman mourning her father feels grief like weight pressing against the ribs, something invisible yet crushing. Ancient Greek myth often explained universal suffering through origin stories because suffering itself demanded meaning. Why do bodies fail? Why do loved ones die? Why does labour exhaust? Why does joy never remain untouched by loss? Pandora's myth became one answer. In Prometheus's house, the first morning after the opening feels heavy. Neither he nor Pandora speaks for a long while. They move around each other quietly, careful not to disturb the fragile peace that remains. The jar sits sealed between them, no longer merely an object but a presence woven into every silence. Inside, hope remains still. No whisper now, no pressure, only waiting. Pandora senses it like a small flame protected from wind. Prometheus steps outside first. The air is cool. Mist still hangs low over the valley. He looks towards distant hills, searching for something he cannot name. His chest feels tighter today, not from physical wound, from knowledge. He now understands what Prometheus feared. Yet something about that realization has changed him too. Before, warnings belonged to thought. Now consequence belongs to lived reality. The afterthinker has become someone forced into foresight. Pandora joins him. She says nothing at first. Together they watch the valley awaken. A cart rolls along a distant path. Birds sweep low over reeds near the stream. Somewhere nearby a child laughs and the sound almost breaks her heart. Laughter survives. That matters. The curse did not erase joy. It complicated it. Pandora finally speaks. Can they feel it? Prometheus knows what she means. Yes. The answer comes softly. All of them. He closes his eyes briefly. Eventually. The word hangs between them like cold fog. Eventually. That is the shape of mortal suffering. Not always immediate, not always dramatic. Sometimes it arrives slowly through years, through age, through loss, through accumulation. Some surviving Greek interpretations suggest Pandora's curse reflected a transition in human consciousness itself. Before suffering becomes fully understood, pain is merely sensation. After suffering becomes understood, pain gains meaning, memory, anticipation. Humans begin fearing future loss even while still safe. This deepens tragedy but also deepens empathy. To know suffering is to recognize it in others. Pandora feels this awakening intensely. She looks at a shepherd far away and suddenly senses his future exhaustion. She sees a mother and imagines future grief. Every life now contains vulnerability visible to her. The knowledge is almost unbearable. By midday, travellers arrive with news. This is how myths ground cosmic change in human experience. Not thunder from Olympus, but stories from Rhodes. A trader from the coast speaks of sudden sickness spreading through households. A farmer reports livestock weakening without clear cause. A woman from a nearby village tells of her elderly father waking unable to stand. None of them understand the cause. They search for explanations in weather spirits, gods, curses, fate. Ritual offerings increase. Priests burn more incense. Sacred fires multiply in shrines. When suffering rises, devotion often intensifies. Pandora listens from inside the house. Every story feels personal. Every pain feels linked to her hands. Guilt deepens. Not abstract guilt. Embodied guilt. She remembers the lid lifting. The first rush of cold, the shadows escaping, the voices, the screams of centuries unborn. Her breathing becomes shallow. Prometheus notices. He dismisses the visitors gently and returns inside. Pandora sits near the hearth, staring into flame. I caused this, she whispers. Prometheus kneels beside her. No, She turned sharply. Yes. No. Her voice breaks. I opened it. He does not deny the act. Instead, he says something harder. You opened the jar, you did not create what was inside. Silence. The distinction lands slowly. Ancient audiences may not always have granted Pandora such mercy, but the distinction matters deeply. Action and origin are not identical. The hand that releases poison is not always the hand that brewed it. Zeus designed the punishment. Pandora triggered it. Responsibility exists, but not alone. She whispers, "Does that absolve me?" Prometheus answers honestly, "No." The honesty hurts, but trust deepens through truth. He continues, "It also doesn't condemn you completely." Pandora closes her eyes. Tears fall silently. Outside, thunder murmurs far away. Not a storm, just presence. Olympus is watching. The Greeks often imagined gods observing human response as much as human suffering. Zeus may have unleashed consequence, but what interest divine power, now despair, endurance claps adaptation? Pandora begins to sense the deeper challenge. The curse is not merely suffering, it is what suffering does to the soul. Will humans become cruel? Will they surrender? Will grief harden into bitterness? Or will something else emerge? As evening falls, she returns to the jar. The sealed lid glows softly in firelight. Still closed. Still containing hope. She places a hand on the clay. Warm now. Not cold. That change startles her. Hope, she whispers. A long pause. Then the familiar voice. Yes. Pandora breathes out. They are suffering. Yes. Can you stop it? No. The answer is immediate. Painful. Pandora's shoulders slump. Then what are you for? Silence. Then hope answers with quiet clarity. I do not remove suffering. Pandora frowns. Then what do you do? The answer comes like dawn. I keep suffering from becoming everything. The words move through her slowly. That is the key. Not cure. Not rescue. Boundary. Hope does not erase grief. It prevents grief from becoming total reality. The Greeks understood this paradox. Mortal life contains suffering as constant companion, yet life continues to produce beauty, courage, memory, devotion and love. Something resists collapse. That something may be hope. Night comes. Stars spread overhead. The same stars that shone before Pandora existed. The same stars that watched Prometheus steal fire. Cosmic beauty remains indifferent yet comforting. Pandora steps outside. Cool wind touches her face. For the first time since opening the jar, she feels something other than guilt. Not peace. Not forgiveness. Purpose. Perhaps that is hope's first work. Not removing pain. Giving direction within it. She looks upward. Somewhere beyond cloud and distance, Olympus shines. She speaks into the night. If suffering is here now, then I will not look away from it. No thunder answers. No divine sign. Only stars. But inside the house, the sealed jar gives off the faintest golden glow. And though the world after Pandora will never again be innocent, it may still become meaningful. That possibility changes everything. While suffering spreads quietly across the mortal world, another punishment unfolds far from villages, hearths and harvest fields. It takes place where human feet rarely tread high, beyond forests and valleys where stone becomes jagged bone beneath the sky. There, on a barren mountain lashed by relentless wind, Zeus delivers judgment upon the Titan who began it all. If Pandora became the beautiful instrument of punishment, Prometheus becomes its enduring witness. You ascend into harsh heights where air grows thin and cold enough to sting the lungs. Snow clings to cracks in black rock. Ice glitters in shadow. Clouds move fast across exposed ridges, casting vast, shifting darkness over stone. No olive groves grow here. No birds sing, no shepherd paths cross this place. Only wind, endless wind. It screams through narrow cliffs like voices trapped between worlds. At the mountain's summit stands Prometheus, bound. Chains of divine forging wrapped around wrists, chest, ankles, and stone itself. These are no mortal chains of iron. They bear the craftsmanship of Hephaestus, forged to restrain even a Titan. Bronze bites into immortal flesh. Every movement grinds metal against skin. Yet Prometheus does not kneel. Even in chains he stands. That matters. Ancient Greek audiences saw endurance under suffering as moral revelation. Punishment exposes character. Under torment, truth becomes difficult to conceal. Prometheus's truth remains defiance. Before him stands Zeus clothed in stormlight. Lightning moves through clouds behind his shoulders. His expression is neither wild nor triumphant. It is controlled, almost judicial. That calm makes the scene more chilling. Zeus does not see himself as cruel. He sees himself as necessary. The Greeks often gave their gods this terrifying complexity. Divine power rarely considered itself evil. It considered itself order. Zeus speaks first. You stole from Olympus. Prometheus says nothing. You deceived me at Mycona. Silence. You elevated mortals beyond their station. Wind howls between them. Finally Prometheus answers, I gave them possibility. Lightning flashes. Zeus's gaze hardens. He gave them arrogance. Prometheus almost smiles. No. His voice is hoarse but steady. I gave them fire. That distinction cuts deep. Fire symbolizes transformation, but transformation terrifies rulers. With fire comes craft. With craft comes progress. With progress comes autonomy. Prometheus knows this. Zeus knows it too. The true conflict was never about flame. It was about power. Zeus steps closer. Thunder rolls low across the mountain. You pity them. Prometheus answers quietly. Yes. Zeus studies him. Why? The question is genuine, not rhetorical. Prometheus lifts his head toward the storm. Because they die. Silence follows. The answer lands with unexpected weight. Because they die. Mortality itself becomes the reason for compassion. This is one of the deepest philosophical currents in the Prometheus myth. Mortality makes humans fragile, but it also makes them worthy of pity, admiration, and perhaps love. Prometheus does not value humans despite their mortality. He values them because of it. Zeus hears the answer, understands it, rejects it. They die because they are mortal. Prometheus replies instantly, and because they are mortal, suffering matters. The mountain falls silent except for wind. Here lies the core divide. For Zeus, suffering reinforces order. For Prometheus, suffering demands response. Neither persuades the other. That is tragedy. Not misunderstanding. Irreconcilable truth. Zeus raises his hand. Chains tighten. Bronze groans. Prometheus's body irks as metal bites deeper. Pain radiates through him sharp and blinding. Yet he does not cry out. This matters. Not because pain disappears, because endurance becomes statement. Ancient Greek heroes were often defined not by invulnerability, but by how they bore suffering. Zeus speaks one final decree. Each day you will remember consequence. Then he turns. Clouds begin closing around him. Before disappearing, he stops. Without turning back, he says, and you will watch what your lovers cost them. Then he vanishes into storm. Prometheus remains alone, almost alone, because punishment is not finished. Ancient tradition remembers the eagle, a great bird sent by Zeus, not merely predator, symbol, retribution made flesh. The sky darkens. A shadow passes across snow and stone. Prometheus hears wings before he sees them. Heavy, massive, deliberate. The eagle descends. Its eyes burn gold. Its talons strike rock. It studies Prometheus with cold instinct. No hatred, no mercy, only purpose. Some myths say each day the eagle devours his liver, and each night the immortal organ regenerates, making torment endless. Greek audiences understood the liver as seat of emotion and vitality. The symbolism is brutal. Punishment targets not just flesh, but the inner core of feeling. The eagle moves. Pain explodes. Prometheus finally cries out. The sound echoes through mountain passes like breaking stone. Far below, mortals never hear the cry. But perhaps they feel it. A strange unease. A sudden chill. An unexplained sorrow. Some researchers interpret Prometheus's suffering as mythic cost of technological progress. Every advancement carries sacrifice. Every gift reshapes moral burden. Fire gave humanity civilization, but civilization did not erase suffering. It complicated it. Hours pass. The eagle departs. Prometheus hangs against stone, breathing hard. Blood freezes in cold wind. Clouds part briefly. Night approaches. Stars emerge. Even here cosmic beauty remains. That is another Greek truth. Beauty and suffering coexist. One does not cancel the other. Prometheus stares at the stars and remembers. He remembers human villages lit by fire, children laughing beside hearths, metal glowing in forges, bread baking, songs rising. He remembers why he acted. Despite agony, regret does not come, only sorrow. Then something unexpected happens. A voice, soft, familiar. Prometheus. He stiffens. The voice does not come from Zeus, not from Storm, not from Eagle. It comes from memory, or vision, or prophecy. No one could know. He sees not with eyes, but within a sight Pandora kneeling beside the sealed jar, tears on her face, hands trembling, hope still within reach. Prometheus closes his eyes. So, it happened. Zeus made his move. Pandora opened the jar. Suffering has entered fully. The realization cuts deeper than the eagle. Yet the vision continues. He sees something else. Golden light within darkness. Small. Steady. Hope. Prometheus's breathing slows. A faint expression touches his face. Not joy. Recognition. He whispers into cold night. So it remained. The wind carries his words away. Ancient traditions differ on whether Prometheus knew of hope's survival, but symbolically the moment matters. Even the Titan of foresight did not fully see every outcome. Forethought has limits. Fate retains mystery. A new omen appears. Far below the mountain, in a valley hidden by distance, one small human fire burns unusually bright, blue-white at its center. The same flame. The strange flame seen in prophecy, seen in the forge, seen before Pandora's awakening. Prometheus watches it. His pain remains unbearable, yet something shifts. Not relief, meaning. Because if hope remains with humanity, then Zeus's punishment is incomplete. Suffering may rule much, but not everything. The eagle will return tomorrow, and tomorrow after that, and after that. Ages may pass before release. Yet Prometheus now understands something vital. The curse is real, but so is resistance. Not victory, resistance. The human refusal to surrender entirely. He leans against cold stone, blood drying, wind howling, stars burning above, and through cracked lips he speaks to the night as if addressing all future generations. Endure. One word. Simple, immense. Because perhaps that is the true legacy of Prometheus. Not fire alone, endurance through suffering. Below the world continues changing. Pandora grieves. Prometheus struggles. Humanity suffers. But somewhere someone lights a lamp against darkness. And that small act matters. Prometheus sees the stars blur through exhaustion. Night deepens. Pain remains. Hope remains. The mountain keeps its silence. Unchained beneath heaven, the Titan waits for centuries to unfold. After the opening of the jar and the binding of Prometheus, silence settles over Pandora's life in a new and terrible way. Before silence held mystery. Now it holds memory. Every quiet moment becomes dangerous because memory rushes in to fill it. She remembers the cold wind bursting from the jar. She remembers the shadows pouring outward. She remembers voices of grief from centuries not yet lived. Most of all, she remembers the instant before the lid lifted, because that moment now divides existence into two worlds, before knowing and after knowing. Days pass, though time feels altered. Morning comes, evening falls, bread still bakes, water still boils, seasons continue their patient turning. The valley remains beautiful. Wildflowers still bloom near the stream. Olive trees still shimmer silver green under wind. Rain still falls and nourishes soil. Yet Pandora now sees burden hidden inside every beautiful thing. Beauty no longer feels innocent. The Greeks understood this intimately. Their world was full of radiance, but also of fragility. Every feast contained the possibility of famine. Every marriage contained eventual separation through death. Every child carried both future promise and future grief. Pandora now sees all of it. She has changed. Not outwardly. Outwardly, she remains breathtaking, graceful, luminous, almost untouched by suffering. That contrast deepens her tragedy. Her face still carries divine beauty, while inside her thoughts grow heavy with guilt. Ancient audiences may have found something haunting in that image, beauty carrying unbearable blame. Prometheus notices the change immediately. She speaks less now. Questions come less frequently. Not because curiosity has died, because curiosity now hurts. Knowledge once promised liberation. Now knowledge feels like wound. One evening they sit outside as twilight deepens. Crickets begin singing. The sky turns from gold to violet. Far away, smoke rises from neighbouring homes, where families gather around hearths. Prometheus breaks the silence. "You haven't asked me anything in days." Pandora keeps watching the horizon. "I know too much already." The answer chills him, because it sounds older than her voice should sound. He studies her profile in fading light. "You still blame yourself." She finally turns. "How can I not?" The question carries no anger, only exhaustion. Prometheus answers carefully. "Because blame can become another prison." Pandora almost laughs. "A prison, yes. I opened the jar, yes. Suffering entered the world, yes." She leans forward. "Then tell me what part is not prison." Prometheus says nothing. "Because logic alone cannot heal guilt." Pandora continues. "Every cry of pain belongs partly to my hands." "No." Her voice sharpens for the first time in many days. "Then whose?" Silence. The fire crackles. Wind moves through dry grass. Then Prometheus says the name neither has spoken in days. "Zeus." The word changes the air. Pandora's gaze hardens. This matters. For the first time, anger begins emerging beneath guilt. Not loud anger, clear anger. "He made me." "Yes." "He gave me the jar." "Yes." "He forbade knowledge." "Yes." She breathes slowly. "Then why do mortals remember my name more than his?" The question strikes like lightning. Ancient scholars and modern historians alike continue wrestling with exactly this. Why did cultural memory place so much blame upon Pandora? Was it misogyny embedded in later poetic traditions? Was she symbolic rather than personal? Was blame easier when attached to a visible human figure rather than divine abstraction? The myth itself offers no easy absolution, but Pandora has finally asked the deepest question. Why am I remembered as the curse? Prometheus cannot answer, because history often remembers symbols more readily than systems. Pandora lowers her gaze again. Her voice softens. "I feel like I was made to carry blame." The sentence feels devastatingly true. And perhaps Zeus intended exactly that. Punishment hidden inside beauty, blame hidden inside gift, responsibility hidden inside desire. The burden becomes psychological, not merely cosmic. That night Pandora dreams again. This dream differs from the others. No jar, no voices, no storm, only a vast shoreline beneath moonlight. Black water breathes against pale sand. Stars burn overhead in impossible clarity. She walks alone. Then she sees someone waiting near the surf. A woman, ancient, radiant. Not young, not old. She feels familiar yet unknown. Some researchers believe later Greek traditions preserved traces of older earth goddess figures within Pandora's myth. In some interpretations, Pandora may once have been associated not with curse, but with abundance, fertility, or life-giving earth. The dream seems to echo that forgotten possibility. The woman speaks. "Do you know what your name means?" Pandora answers automatically. "All gifted." The woman smiles faintly. "That is one meaning." "One, yes." "What is the other?" The woman steps closer. Moonlight glows around her. "All giving." Pandora freezes. "All giving." Not receiver, giver. The idea shakes her. The woman continues. "The earth gives grain and also famine. The sea gives fish and also storms. Fire gives warmth and also burns. Gifts are never singular." Pandora whispers, "Then what am I?" The woman touches her forehead. Humanity will decide. Pandora wakes with tears on her face. The dream lingers powerfully. All giving. The phrase changes something fundamental. Perhaps Pandora is not merely curse. Perhaps she embodies the totality of human condition. Beauty and suffering. Desire and grief. Curiosity and consequence. Loss and endurance. Morning comes. She goes to the jar. The sealed clay now feels almost familiar beneath her fingers. Hope, she whispers. The voice answers. Yes. Pandora asks quietly, why did you remain? Hope pauses, then answers, because I cannot exist where choice is absent. Pandora frowns. What does that mean? It means I cannot be forced upon anyone. She absorbs this. Hope continues. Suffering enters without invitation. Hope must be accepted. The insight lands deeply. Hope is different from every curse. Pain invades. Hope must be chosen. The Greeks understood this paradox beautifully. Courage, endurance, devotion, and meaning cannot simply be granted from outside. They require participation. Hope lives partly as decision. Pandora whispers, then humanity may reject you. Yes? The answer is calm. Terrifying. Why stay then? Hope responds with gentle certainty. Because some will choose. That sentence becomes light inside darkness. Not all. Some. That is enough. Pandora closes her eyes. For the first time since opening the jar, guilt shifts. Not gone, never gone, but transformed. Burden becomes a responsibility, and responsibility offers direction. She cannot undo suffering. She cannot return innocence. She cannot close history, but perhaps she can bear witness differently. Perhaps her story need not end at blame. That evening, as stars emerge once more, Pandora steps outside. The valley glows under moonlight. Somewhere a baby cries. Somewhere lovers laugh. Somewhere an old man coughs. Joy and suffering already intertwined. She finally understands the cruel brilliance of Zeus's punishment. He did not destroy humanity. He made humanity fully human, finite, vulnerable, conscious of loss, yet still capable of love. Pandora looks toward the stars and speaks aloud as if to Olympus itself. I will carry the burden. A pause. Then she adds, but I will not carry the lie. The wind rises, cool and clean. For a brief moment the stars seem brighter. And inside the sealed jar, hope glows softly like a hidden dawn waiting for its hour. Years begin to pass, and with passing years, Pandora's story stops belonging only to Pandora. That is how myth truly becomes myth. At first, a story lives inside the people who experienced it. Then it passes into witnesses, then into households, then into songs, prayers, warnings, lullabies, rituals, and whispered conversations beside firelight. Eventually, the story no longer belongs to one life. It becomes cultural memory. In ancient Greece, memory itself was sacred. The Greeks imagined the Muses as daughters of Mnemosyne memory itself, because nothing survives civilization without remembrance. To remember is to preserve meaning against time. Pandora begins to see this transformation while still alive. Children grow hearing her name before understanding her face. Mothers mention the jar when warning restless sons and daughters against reckless curiosity. Priests invoke her story during rituals about restraint, obedience, sacrifice, and divine order. Travelers carry variations of the tale from island to island. Each retelling changes something. One storyteller emphasizes punishment. Another emphasizes deception. Another blames Zeus more openly. Another softens Pandora's role. Myth behaves like fire passed from torch to torch. The flame continues, but each carrier shapes its movement. You can walk now through marketplaces and hear fragments of her becoming legend. In a harbour town, fishermen speak of Pandora when discussing storms. One thing opens and everything changes, says an old sailor while mending rope. In a mountain village, a grandmother tells children never to open sacred containers without blessing. In a city courtyard, a poet recites verses comparing human grief to shadows released from sealed darkness. Already symbolism grows wider than biography. Pandora feels strange hearing her own life translated into metaphor. One afternoon she travels with Prometheus to a nearby festival honouring harvest and household gods. The air smells of roasted grain, olive oil, figs, honey cakes, and sheep wool warmed by sun. Bronze bells ring near shrines. Priests burn incense before carved altars. Musicians play lyre and flute while children run between stalls. The scene is vibrant, alive, profoundly human. Despite suffering, festivals continue. This matters deeply. The Greeks did not imagine suffering ending communal joy. They imagined joy becoming more precious because suffering existed. As Pandora walks through the crowd, she notices whispers. Some recognize her. Some stare. Some lower their eyes. A young mother pulls her daughter slightly closer. Not in fear, exactly. In caution. Pandora notices. She always notices. Burden sharpens perception. At a pottery stall, an old artisan displays painted jars. Their curved surfaces show mythic scenes in black and red. Warriors, ships, horses, gods. Then Pandora sees something that stops her completely. One jar bears a painted woman lifting a lid. Dark shapes rise around her. The artisan notices her gaze. Popular design lately, he says casually. People buy them for household warning. Pandora's throat tightens. Warning, he nods, against foolish curiosity. The words land like a blade wrapped in routine. Foolish curiosity. So simple. So convenient. She studies the painted woman. No face, just symbol. Already she's becoming less person, more lesson. Prometheus senses her distress. He guides her away quietly. When they reach the edge of the festival near olive groves, Pandora finally speaks. They are simplifying me. Prometheus looks at her. What do you mean? They want the story clean. She kneels and touches fallen olive leaves. They want cause and blame. Woman opens jar, evil escapes, lesson learned. Her voice grows quieter. But that is not the truth. No, Prometheus says, it's easier than truth. The Greeks understood this too, though not always consciously. Memory compresses complexity. Stories survive through pattern, and pattern often demands simplification. Ambiguity gets shaved away, contradictions soften, moral uncertainty becomes neat lesson. Pandora resists this. Because she lived the complexity. She remembers loneliness, manipulation, withheld truth, curiosity, tenderness, fear, and genuine longing to understand. None of that fits neatly into blame. That evening, after returning home, Pandora sits beside the jar. Years have changed the house. New tools hang on walls, clay vessels multiply, woven cloth covers benches. Life continues, yet the jar remains unchanged. It neither ages nor cracks. She places a hand on it. Hope. The familiar warmth answers before the voice. Yes. Pandora speaks with unusual heaviness. They are forgetting. Some are. They turn me into warning. Hope remains silent. Pandora continues. They remove Zeus. Silence. They remove the trap. Silence. They remove the questions. At last Hope speaks. Memory preserves, memory distorts. Pandora closes her eyes. Then what survives? The answer comes gently. What people need. The sentence unsettles her. What if what they need is false? Hope answers with painful honesty. Sometimes false simplicity feels safer than difficult truth. This idea expands far beyond myth. Historians continue debating how myths changed across centuries precisely because societies reshaped stories to reflect current anxieties. Surviving literature gives us fragments, not pure originals. Pandora's myth especially reveals layers of changing attitudes toward labor women, marriage, divine justice, and human suffering. Pandora senses this transformation happening in real time. She asks quietly, "Will anyone remember me as I was?" A long pause follows. Then Hope answers, "Yes." Who? The ones who keep asking deeper questions. Pandora breathes slowly. The answer comforts her more than expected. Not everyone. Some. Again that word. Some. That has become Hope's language. Not certainty. Possibility. Days later, another visitor arrives. A young poet. Thin, bright-eyed, carrying wax tablets and charcoal. He asked permission to speak with Pandora. She hesitates, then agrees. They sit outside beneath cypress shade. The poet speaks carefully. "I want to record your story." Pandora studies him. "Why Because stories change. She says nothing. He continues. I want to hear yours before only symbols remain. That answer surprises her. Perhaps Hope was right. Some still ask deeper questions. The poet begins. What did you feel when you opened the jar? Not what happened. What did you feel? The distinction matters. Pandora looks towards distant hills. After a long silence, she answers. Loneliness. The poet stops writing, surprised. Loneliness? Yes. Not greed, temptation, pride. She shakes her head. No. He waits. She continues. I felt like everyone demanded obedience while denying understanding. The poet writes quickly. Pandora's voice steadies. I did not open the jar because I love destruction. She looks directly at him. I opened it because I could no longer bear ignorance. The poet's breathing slows. He understands the importance. This version is more difficult. More human. More tragic. Not evil. Need to know. Need to understand purpose. Need for truth. Ancient audiences may not always have foregrounded this, but modern interpretation increasingly sees Pandora through precisely this lens, not as source of evil, but as consciousness trapped inside divine power structures. The poet asks one final question. If you could be remembered by one truth, what would it be? Pandora looks at the sealed jar, then the stars beginning to appear above twilight. Finally she answers, Tell them this. The poet leans closer. Pandora's voice becomes calm. Suffering entered the world through me? A pause. But suffering was never created by me. The poet writes. Pandora continues. And tell them something else. What? She places a hand over the jar. That hope stayed. The wind moves through cypress branches. Stars multiply overhead. Memory is already shaping myth. Some will distort. Some will simplify. Some will blame. Some will question. And across generations, daughters of memory poets, mothers, priests, storytellers will keep carrying fragments of Pandora's truth. Not perfectly, but enough. Enough that somewhere in the future someone will still ask, was Pandora truly the curse? Or the first witness to what it means to be human? Generations pass and Pandora herself begins fading into the long twilight where living memory becomes inherited story. Villages change. Children become elders. Elders become names spoken during winter evenings. Houses collapse and are rebuilt. Shrines weather beneath rain and wind, yet the myth survives. Not unchanged, never unchanged, but alive. Now the story moves into the hands of poets, and among them one voice becomes more influential than almost any other Hesiod. You travel now into Boeotia, into the agricultural world of early Greek oral poetry, where hard labour shapes philosophy as much as temples shape ritual. Unlike court poets who celebrate kings and heroic conquest, Hesiod speaks from a harsher earth. Fields matter, seasons matter, hunger matters, rain matters. Harvest failure can mean disaster. The smell of soil, sweat, sheep, wool, wood, smoke, and grain drying in sunlight forms the atmosphere of his world. Here myth becomes practical wisdom. Hesiod's surviving works, especially Theogony and Works and Days, preserve the most famous version of Pandora's story. Historians continue debating how much he inherited from older oral traditions and how much he reshaped to reflect his own anxieties. But one thing is clear, Hesiod's Pandora is not merely narrative. She becomes warning. This matters enormously, because through Hesiod, Pandora becomes tied to themes far larger than one woman. Labour, marriage, household burden, divine justice, human suffering. You can imagine Hesiod sitting near lamplight wax tablets nearby, or perhaps reciting aloud to listeners while memory carries the poem forward. Outside, night settles over farms and hills. Dogs bark at distant movement. Crickets sing. Olive trees sway beneath moonlight. The poet speaks and listeners lean closer. He describes the age after Prometheus, the age after fire, the age after punishment, an age where mortals must labour. To understand Hesiod's version, you must understand his world. He does not romanticize work. He knows exhaustion intimately, ploughing fields under relentless sun, waiting for rain that may not come, harvesting grain before storms destroy it, repairing tools, storing food for winter. Every season brings risk. To Hesiod, labour is not optional, it is survival. Pandora enters this worldview as explanation. Why must humans toil? Why does life demand effort? Why does suffering accompany existence? The myth answers through divine consequence. But Hesiod adds another layer: suspicion. In his telling, Pandora is shaped as kalon kakon, a beautiful evil, or more precisely a beautiful thing containing harm. The phrase has echoed through centuries because it captures Greek discomfort with appearances. What looks desirable may conceal burden. What promises delight may carry cost. Pandora becomes symbol of that paradox, not because beauty itself is evil, because desire clouds judgment. You begin to see why later generations remember the myth so sharply. Ancient Greek men listening to Hesiod would hear more than divine drama. They would hear social warning. Marriage brings companionship, household continuity, children and social order, but also expense, emotional complexity, vulnerability and responsibility. Some scholars argue Hesiod projected deep anxiety about dependency and domestic burden into Pandora's story. Yet even here interpretation remains divided. Was Hesiod condemning women, or using gendered imagery to express broader fears about dependency and desire? Another interpretation suggests he was reflecting the harsh economic realities of agrarian life, where every household decision affected survival. The ambiguity remains. That is why the myth endures. One evening, as Hesiod recites before gathered listeners, an old farmer interrupts. If Pandora released suffering, the farmer says, why do we still laugh? The crowd quiets. It is a remarkable question. Simple. Profound. Hesiod pauses. Firelight dances across weathered faces. Then he answers, because suffering was not the only thing left. The listeners murmur. Some nod. Some frown. Hope remains controversial even here. Ancient scholars long after Hesiod would continue arguing about hope's meaning. Was hope blessing, illusion, consolation? Dangerous optimism that keeps humans enduring endless toil? The uncertainty fascinates philosophers to this day. The farmer speaks again. So hope is mercy? Hesiod stares into the fire. His answer comes slowly. Or necessity? Necessity. That word carries enormous weight. Hope not as luxury, not as naive optimism, but a survival mechanism. Without hope, labour becomes unbearable. Without hope, planting seed becomes absurd. Why sow if drought is certain? Why marry if loss is inevitable? Why raise children if grief awaits? Why build if death comes? The answer is not certainty of success. It is hope. This is the brilliance of the myth. Suffering and hope become inseparable. Pandora's jar did not merely release pain, it defined human psychology. You suffer, yet continue. That paradox becomes civilization. Outside, the poet's gathering clouds begin gathering over moonlight. Wind shifts direction. A storm approaches across the plains. Lightning flickers far away. An omen. As always, one young listener, barely old enough to farm alone, speaks nervously. Master, was Pandora wicked? The question still lives. Even generations later. Hesiod looks at the boy. Long silence. Then he asks a question instead. Tell me if a trap is built and someone falls into it, who carries blame? The boy hesitates. The one who built it. Only, the boy thinks. No. And also the one who ignored warning. Hesiod nods. And if the one who fell never understood the trap? Silence. The boy cannot answer. Neither can many listening. That silence matters more than direct explanation, because myth survives through unresolved tension. Hesiod finally speaks. Pandora is warning. The boy frowns. Warning of women? Hesiod shakes his head. No. The fire crackles. Warning of human hunger. The listeners go still. Hesiod continues. Hunger for ease, hunger for knowledge, hunger for beauty, hunger for certainty. He looks around the circle. We are creatures who reach. The sentence feels almost modern in psychological depth. Humans reach. Toward truth. Toward comfort. Toward meaning. Toward forbidden things. Pandora becomes symbol not of female weakness, but of universal human reaching. Some listeners understand. Others prefer simpler blame. That too is human. Later that night, after the gathering disperses, Hesiod remains alone beside dying embers. Wind moves through dry grass. The storm has nearly arrived. He looks upward and speaks as though to unseen presences. "Did you intend this?" No answer. Thunder rolls. He continues. "Did Zeus mean justice or domination?" Lightning flashes. Still no answer. That silence becomes its own theology. The Greek gods rarely explain themselves fully. Mortals interpret, argue, debate, wonder. Some researchers believe this very uncertainty explains the endurance of Greek myth. The myths do not solve existence, they dramatize it. Rain begins falling. Cold, steady. Hesiod shelters his tablets. Before leaving, he writes one final line for the night. A line about labour, about gods, about necessity, about the stubborn continuation of human life. As ink dries, he pauses. Something unsettles him. A thought. Pandora, not as warning, not as symbol, as person. Lonely, questioning, blamed. He wonders briefly whether posterity will remember her too harshly. The thought passes, but not entirely. Because even within the strongest moral frameworks, empathy keeps returning, and empathy complicates judgment. The storm breaks fully over Boeotia. Rain strikes earth. Fields drink deeply. Seeds beneath soil wait for spring. Suffering remains. Labour remains. Death remains. Yet tomorrow farmers will still rise before dawn. They will still plough. Still plant. Still hope. And somewhere inside every act of human persistence, Pandora's final mystery continues. Did hope remain as gift? Or did humanity create hope for itself? Hesiod leaves the fire behind. The rain extinguishes the last ember. But in darkness something unseen still glows. Not certainty, not innocence, hope. As centuries continue to pass, Pandora's story no longer belongs to poets alone. It becomes part of sculpture, pottery, temple decoration, oral storytelling, philosophical debate, and quiet private reflection. Each retelling reshapes her slightly. Each culture that inherits the myth adds its own anxieties, its own values, its own interpretation of blame and meaning. Pandora, once a single figure standing between gods and mortals, now becomes many figures layered across time. You can see her in fragments preserved on ancient pottery. Sometimes she's shown as a woman stepping forward from divine assembly. Sometimes she stands beside a sealed vessel. Sometimes she's surrounded by gods offering gifts. In other depictions, she appears almost solemn, not seductive, not threatening, but contemplative, as if already aware that her presence in myth carries consequences she cannot control. Archaeologists continue to debate whether these images represent Pandora herself or symbolic representations of first woman, a concept that may have evolved before becoming fixed in later literary tradition. In philosophical circles, especially later, Greek thought Pandora becomes something else entirely. She's no longer just narrative, she becomes question. What is the origin of suffering? What is the role of desire in human error? Why do gifts carry burden? Why do mortals repeatedly reach toward what they are told to avoid? These questions echo far beyond mythology into the foundations of human psychology. In some interpretations, Pandora is linked with fertility and earth symbolism. The same vessel that releases suffering is also a container, and containers in ancient symbolism often represent womb soil storage and transformation. Some researchers argue that before Hesiod's more negative framing, older traditions may have associated Pandora with abundance or earth-giving qualities. In that reading, she's not curse, but transformation principle, life emerging through paradox, gain and loss bound together. Other traditions move in the opposite direction. Later, dramatists and moral philosophers increasingly emphasize warning. Pandora becomes cautionary figure associated with curiosity, temptation and disobedience. In these versions, she reflects anxiety about control, divine control, social control, emotional control. The jar becomes a metaphor for boundaries that must not be crossed. Yet even in these stricter interpretations, something always resists simplification. Hope remains. That detail refuses to vanish. You stand now in a later Greek philosophical environment where thinkers begin analysing myth more critically. Some treat Pandora as allegory, others as theological explanation, others as cultural memory of early social transformation. In Athens, in philosophical schools, in quiet gardens where discussion replaces ritual, Pandora becomes a subject of interpretation rather than worship. One philosopher raises a question during discussion. If Pandora represents human curiosity, he asks, then is curiosity divine or dangerous? Another replies, both. That answer, simple and unsettling, captures something essential about Greek thought. Duality is everywhere. The same force that builds cities also destroys them. The same intelligence that heals also harms. The same desire that creates love also creates suffering. Pandora sits precisely in that tension. Neither purely good nor purely evil. Neither fully victim nor fully agent. Neither entirely divine nor entirely mortal. A bridge. And bridges by nature carry weight from both sides. In later artistic tradition, especially in vase paintings and sculpture, Pandora begins to appear in more refined forms. She's sometimes shown being adorned by gods, sometimes emerging from earth, sometimes standing in still dignity holding the jar. The visual language shifts depending on cultural emphasis, punishment, creation, warning, or transformation. In one interpretation preserved in poetic fragments, Pandora is not blamed at all, but instead described as moment of transition when humanity becomes self-aware of consequence. The opening of the jar symbolizes the birth of historical consciousness itself, at the moment humans understand that actions produce irreversible effects across time. This interpretation reframes everything. Not fall. Awakening. You can feel how radical that shift is. Because if Pandora represents awakening rather than corruption, then suffering is not external punishment, but internal recognition of reality, mortality, change, lost, time. None of these begin with her, but she becomes the moment they become visible. In another tradition, more theological in tone, Pandora is seen as instrument of divine justice. Zeus in this reading does not punish out of cruelty, but out of structural necessity. Humanity empowered by fire and craft risks imbalance in cosmic order. Pandora becomes corrective mechanism restoring equilibrium between mortal ambition and divine authority. Yet even here ethical discomfort remains, because correction delivered through suffering always raises moral tension. Across these interpretations, Pandora multiplies. Curious woman, divine construct, symbol of earth, warning against desire, embodiment of curiosity, instrument of justice, mirror of human psychology. No single version fully contains her, and perhaps that is intentional. Because Pandora, more than almost any mythic figure, resists closure. One evening in a later philosophical school, a student asks a teacher, "Was Pandora real?" The teacher pauses, then answers carefully, "Real enough to explain us." That answer carries weight, because myths endure not as factual accounts, but as frameworks for understanding experience. As long as humans suffer, as long as humans desire, as long as humans question, Pandora remains relevant. You now return once more to a symbolic vision of her, not as isolated figure, but as presence moving through layered time. She stands in imagination of farmers, sailors, mothers, philosophers, poets. Each sees something slightly different. One sees warning. One sees injustice. One sees curiosity. One sees origin of suffering. One sees beginning of wisdom. One sees mirror. And mirrors, unlike statues, never remain fixed. They change depending on who stands before them. Pandora looks outward from this accumulation of interpretations, no longer trapped in single narrative. And perhaps she was never truly trapped there. Perhaps myth itself is the jar. And interpretation is what escapes. Suffering, meaning, fear, hope, reflection, doubt, these all move through generations like unseen currents. The jar becomes symbol of containment, but also transformation. What is sealed does not disappear. It waits. It changes form. It returns in new language. And through it all, one element persists stubbornly. Hope. Still debated. Still uncertain. Still interpreted differently. yet always present, even in contradiction, even in pain, even in loss. Pandora's many faces finally converge in one quiet realization. She is not answer. She is question that refuses to end. And as long as humanity continues asking why suffering exists alongside beauty, why curiosity leads both to ruin and discovery, why gifts carry both blessing and burden, her presence will remain, not as punishment, but as reminder. That understanding is never complete, only continuing. Time moves forward again, and now Pandora is no longer a figure moving through myth alone. She becomes background presence inside human life itself. You no longer see her walking among gods or standing beside the sealed jar. Instead, she exists in something quieter and more enduring, the lived experience of mortals under open sky. The jar is no longer a single object in a single house. It has become the condition of existence itself. Suffering is no longer an event that happened once. It is a constant companion woven into daily life. And yet life continues. You stand in a Greek valley at dawn. Mist rises from fields where farmers begin their work before heat settles over the land. The smell of wet earth, crushed grass, and distant wood smoke fills the air. Oxen pull wooden ploughs through soil that resists and yields in equal measure. The rhythm of labour is steady, almost ritualistic. Sweat darkens linen garments. Hands bleed and heal and bleed again across seasons. And still the fields are planted, still grain is sown, still bread will be made. This is the world after Pandora in its most essential form. Not collapse. Continuation. The Greeks understood something profound here, even if they expressed it through myth rather than philosophy. Suffering does not cancel life. It structures it. Without hardship, effort loses meaning. Without loss, joy loses depth. Without uncertainty, hope becomes unnecessary. The world does not become perfect after the jar opens. It becomes fully real. In villages, people begin to speak differently. Old phrases emerge in conversation. This is the way of mortals, so it was given, so it will be again. These expressions carry resignation but also recognition. Patterns of existence are being acknowledged rather than resisted. Children grow up hearing stories not only of gods, but of endurance, of survival, of how people continue despite what they know will come. In one coastal town, a fisherman speaks while repairing nets torn by storm. Salt crusts his beard. His hands are raw. He says almost to himself, the sea always takes, but it also returns. A younger man asks if that is justice. The fisherman pauses, looks toward the horizon where waves move endlessly and replies, "It is balance, not justice." That distinction matters deeply in Greek thought. Justice implies intention. Balance implies structure. The world after Pandora is not necessarily moral in a human sense. It is patterned. It gives and takes. It wounds and sustains. It never stops moving. In households, fire burns every night. Hearths become central to survival. Families gather around them, not only for warmth but for meaning. Food is cooked, stories are told, silence is shared. Outside wind may carry cold illness, fear uncertainty. Inside light is preserved. Fire once stolen by Prometheus now becomes anchor of human continuity. And within that continuity something unexpected grows. Love. Not absence of suffering, but connection within it. You begin to see how relationships deepen precisely because life is fragile. A mother holds a child longer. A husband listens more carefully. A friend values presence more acutely. A farewell carries more weight. A reunion carries more joy. Nothing is neutral anymore. Everything is intensified by awareness of loss. Pandora's world is not a world without hope. It is a world where hope becomes necessary. One evening, beneath a sky full of stars, an elder sits beside a fire telling children stories. His voice is slow, steady, shaped by age. He speaks of gods who shaped fate of fire stolen from Olympus, of a woman who opened a sealed jar. The children listen, eyes wide. One asks, "Why did she open it?" The elder considers this for a long time. Finally he says, because not knowing is heavier than fear, that answer is not in Hesiod, not in any single source. It is interpretation layered onto myth by lived experience. And yet it feels true to human psychology across time. Curiosity persists even when consequences are known. Humans reach anyway. Elsewhere, a widow lights a lamp in her home after burial. She watches flame flicker against clay walls. Her grief is sharp, immediate, unbearable. Yet she still lights the lamp the next night, and the night after. Not because grief has ended, but because life continues to ask for action. Hope here is not optimism, it is repetition. Still lighting the lamp. Still planting the seed. Still speaking name of the dead. Still continuing. Far away on mountain paths, travellers share food with strangers. In temples, prayers are offered not only for safety, but endurance. In fields, songs emerge to match rhythm of labour. None of this removes suffering, but it shapes how suffering is carried. Pandora in this stage of myth becomes almost invisible. Not forgotten, but integrated. Her story no longer stands apart from life, it underlies it. And this is where the myth reaches its most subtle insight. The jar was never just an object that released suffering. It was a turning point in perception. Before its suffering might be imagined as external force, after its suffering becomes inseparable from existence. Yet alongside it, something else remains inseparable too. Hope. Not as escape, but as structure, as persistence, as the quiet refusal to let pain become final definition. Even Zeus's role begins to blur in human interpretation. Was he punisher or necessary architect of awareness? Was Prometheus liberator or catalyst of imbalance? Was Pandora victim or threshold? The myth does not resolve these questions, it only ensures they remain alive, and that is why it endures. Because human life does not resolve them either. You stand now under night sky again. Same stars as before. Same moon, same wind moving through olive branches. And yet the world feels different because understanding has changed. Pandora is no longer just story of origin. She is reminder embedded in existence itself. That beauty and suffering arrive together. That knowledge carries cost. That curiosity opens doors that cannot be closed. But also, that within open worlds something always remains unspent. Still waiting, still present, still called hope. And so humanity continues beneath open sky, carrying both wound and warmth, both loss and meaning, both memory and anticipation. Not because the jar was never opened, but because something inside it chose to stay. Night settles once more, but this night feels different from all the nights that came before it. It is quieter not because the world has stopped speaking, but because you have learned how to hear it differently. Wind moves through olive trees with a softer sound now. The sea continues its slow breathing against distant shores. Stars remain fixed in their ancient patterns, unchanged since before Pandora's name was ever spoken. And yet something within perception has shifted. The story has completed its circle, but understanding continues to unfold. You return once more in imagination to the sealed jar, not as object, not as mythic artifact, but as memory of everything it released and everything it did not. Suffering is still in the world. It always was and it always will be in forms large and small. It appears in aging bodies, in lost voices, in broken seasons, in uncertainty that never fully resolves. It appears in silence after laughter, in absence after presence, in the slow passing of time that cannot be stopped. The Greeks did not imagine a world without suffering after Pandora. They imagined a world made visible through it. But something else remains with equal persistence. Hope. Not loud, not triumphant, not guaranteed, not always understood. Just present, like a small, steady light in a darkened room that never fully goes out, even when everything else seems to fade. You can imagine Pandora now not as punishment, not as origin of blame, but as threshold between two kinds of existence. One where humans live without awareness of consequence, and one where humans live with full awareness that every joy carries fragility and every sorrow carries meaning. Prometheus is no longer just the man who received her. Prometheus is no longer only the one who stole fire. Zeus is no longer only the one who commanded punishment. And Pandora is no longer only the one who opened the jar. They have become parts of the same reflection, curiosity, action, consequence, endurance, and beneath all of them, something quieter still, the refusal to end meaning. Ancient storytellers may not have spoken this explicitly, but the myth itself suggests it. When the jar opened, the world did not end, it continued. That continuation is essential, because suffering without continuation would be absolute despair. But continuation transforms suffering into experience, and experience becomes memory, and memory becomes story. That is where you are now, inside story. Listening, reflecting, not as distant observer, but as presence within the same question that has always existed in human thought. Why does beauty exist alongside pain, and why does awareness make both impossible to separate? Pandora does not answer this for you. She never fully did. Instead, she stands at the boundary where answers stop being simple and start becoming lived reality. You can almost see her one last time in fading light, not in Olympus, not in mythic drama, but in quiet human world. A woman standing near a hearth, firelight reflecting in her eyes, a sealed jar no longer central but remembered. Around her, life continues. People speak, work, suffer, love, lose, return, continue again, and somewhere in that continuity, hope remains not as escape from the world, but as something that makes staying within it possible. The Greeks may have called it a gift or a trap, blessing or punishment, but perhaps its truth is simpler than all interpretations. Hope is what allows a beginning after an ending, a breath after silence, a step after collapse, a morning after night. You feel the story slow now, like a tide withdrawing from shore, leaving behind only quiet sand and distant sound. There is no final resolution that removes uncertainty. There is only understanding that uncertainty is part of the human condition itself. Pandora's story does not close the world, it opens it. And now, as everything softens into stillness, you can let the weight of it settle gently rather than sharply. The myth does not ask to be solved, it asks to be lived with. So you remain for a moment longer in that space between suffering and meaning, between loss and continuation, between what was opened and what still remains. And in that space, the last light inside the jar is not brightness that blinds, it is quiet illumination that lingers. Enough to see the next moment, and then the next, and then the next, until even silence feels like continuation rather than end. Slowly now everything becomes softer. The story does not end abruptly. It fades, like embers after fire, still warm, still present, still remembered.